sort of my entry point into this particular space, field, sphere, media, whatever you want to call it, was actually kind of inadvertent in terms of I was on Jan's show long. I had a book that came out, and I just somehow I chanced across the show, and so I had a book, and it's nothing like the later topics. It was said in it's called Trance Ritual and Rhythm. So I was written on this tribe in the Himalayas, and I think we were both consuming cannabis or something during that show. We both changed a lot. So it was kind of back when he was very much like pro mushroom and all that stuff. So back, I think, when his show first started. Um, but I got into it actually. So I developed a sort of a research model for my dissertation, which is uh, kind of a really comprehensive look. If you say music, I mean, you're tying into so many different layers of culture, types of human interaction, historical. Um, I got a lot into like historical narratives, which is very like in India is very, very strong because you have, say, like the India versus Pakistan, you have the division, Hindu versus Muslim. And so the whole tradition of Indian music diverged around that. But this was programmed actually from this guy named William Jones on the music of the Hindus. So he wrote this in the 1760s. But it was a large, again, we're not dealing with rock. We're talking about Indian classical music. But anyways, this kind of comprehensive dealing with all the different layers from, you could say, from perceptual, psychological to, analytical of music to, you could say financial distribution channels, et cetera. So it's pretty comprehensive, but trying to look as sort of a holistic thing. And so Jan, and I'm still pissed at Jan. He's like, dude, don't buy Bitcoin. It's $500 now. It's a ripoff. So I mean, I still remember that. Right before he said that, I was like, oh, it just went up. It's not worth it. I mean, but anyways, I don't have like a Jan dartboard or something. Sometimes I think about that. But anyways, but he said, look, I had this guest who's supposed to come on, and it's like I have this whole thing, it's scheduled, and he was going to talk about music and mind control or music and this, and he just decided he wasn't up for the topic and he didn't want to do it. And so I had really never specifically considered the Western musical space, the field, the cultural, you could say the cultural ocean that we swim in, or, sort of our thing. I mean, I did have, I had a number of, experiential things and just things that I sensed, especially being around certain types of music, certain types of people, certain types of energies. And I started to notice, like, that's one of the reasons I went to India, actually. I had left, I dropped out of college. I lived in India about 4 or 5 years, sort of just real, not, pretty hardcore. Like, I didn't have a lot of money. I was like, being poor in India is really, it's not, it's not, it's not that glamorous, but I enjoyed it. But because I had this sort of a, okay, now I'm getting too deep, but I had sort of this visionary thing, and it was not, there's no sort of substances involved, but it was I mean, it was literally like I was, um, it's almost like entering into a future space or a future world almost, or a potential world. And I just, there was like, I saw all these like surveillance drones going around and all this sort of corruption and pollution, and even in the food and this, it was like this very unpleasant thing. It was very real. It wasn't like, it's hard to explain. It was almost like you step into a different um reality for a moment. I mean, and then, but it was, and the thing was, when that was a long time ago, but a lot of the things that sort of experientially that I encountered are now here, right? At that time, there are no drones, there's nothing, none of this stuff. But all the whole thing of like America, I want to like, okay. And then other thing was I was, playing, and I played, I was like really into jazz, and then I was into some other, styles, sort of like funk, but also kind of like hippie, sort of that kind of thing. There's like a lot of rainbow tribe people around me and stuff like that. And I just somehow I started hearing these types of energies in this music that didn't seem congruent with me. A lot of you could say just like for example, even jazz. I was a huge like jazz fan, listened to like Charlie Parker endlessly. I'm sure my college roommate, he probably hated me. It's like this guy's playing like playing bebop all night. Not, but I heard this dark energy in there, meaning that there's a lot of anger, rage, different emotions. And then also there was being around people like taking lots of drugs and stuff. They were just, it sort of repelled me. I didn't really necessarily consciously say, I don't like this or that, but it was just, I, I got almost pushed by that. And I didn't really, make a list, pros and cons, but I ended up going to India just because I felt like this is much, the music itself has this direct kind of spiritual connection and is connected with, just a different type of resonance with life. And I just didn't want, I don't know, I didn't want to be around these kinds of things. So long story short, Jan asked me to do it, and I hadn't really. So that's just a preamble that something was there, like even like techno. Or I remember like just going. I was in Goa, and there was this whole. They had this whole um, forest painted day glow DJ. There's probably like 100,000 people there, and and just the music and that whole space was just. I mean, it was like almost like toxic and poisonous. I could feel that, and I could just see the people just becoming. I don't know. It wasn't my scene. I mean, maybe I should have been dancing, with the stars. It like it seemed like something very harmful, very mechanical, very very anti-natural, and at least the types of energies I didn't want to experience. And I saw, and then again, seeing people was really whacked out, and it just was like, whoa. I mean, very. I mean, like I got, I don't want to be even touch this. I don't want to let this to enter into my sensory channels if I can help it. Okay, that being said, didn't really think about it much. And so Jan said, write about this topic. So I just said, okay, let me just consider this. And I wrote this outline. And in the outline, that became, I don't know how many shows. Like I just, whatever I wrote, 3 or 4 pages, and then it just kept going and going. So and we got into more and more different topics. So it kind of took off. And then a lot of that research, I mean, I was doing during the show, and I just started out just with, like I said, with my sort of research, the modeling I did, and I always try to avoid putting. I think if you're, um, I was talking to someone, he's a statistician, but I had some work I'd done with gesture analysis and embodied cognition, and it was a scientific type of study and paper, but I contested the whole field. I didn't mean to, just because I couldn't. I felt like this is not really getting to the heart of the matter, and there's too much imposition. And it's also a mind body dualism. So there's a dualistic conception. I can go in all that later, but I saw. So the whole thing is, I want to. What is there? What is the closest we can approximate to an objective analysis in the actual arising complexity, um, but also just and even you know depending on what you're looking at, there's different types of valences and biases, that will come and go, and you have to just be acknowledge that. But I mean, I played lots of rock and roll. I had a period where I stopped listening to that, and then I was doing jazz, but then, it's like it. So, but I didn't really put so much thought into it unless it was something that just like, I just don't want to be in this field. I don't want to be around these types of people. I don't want to be around this whole, it's not congruent. But so that's it. Yeah. Anyway, so that just all the different topics. And so that's really how it started. And then and then as you continue, it's like, wow, there's so much there. And at certain points I was like, um, you know, you have neurophysiological effects, you have the but you have also, you go into the transformation of the youth, the changing of the entire structure of society, to even like some of this sort of occult type of stuff, which, and that, initially I was very skeptical, and then I was like, as it got deeper, I'm like, wow, there's a lot into this, that and I think it's and I'll tell you the truth. Initially, I thought it's kind of a type of entertainment. I'm not going to take it that seriously. But then there's something where you kind of think something is real. Then when you see, oh wow, this is actually real. This is not just like, I mean, you can frame something in a certain way, but like there is a huge phenomena, and there's no way that you can say that this happened organically or naturally to a certain degree, and so, and again, I always try to be balanced, and you always have to look at the situational awareness, the arising of something in a particular moment. You don't want to ever get into sort of, this is bad, or they're controlling me, or this or that. No, I mean, but there is a lot of stuff, and I've had to do like extracting, like realizing some of these things are like, even from watching television and stuff and cartoons as a kid, some of the stuff is programmed in your subconscious. It's there. You have to get to it to unwind it, but so it's not like I don't recognize it, but it also means I'm not going to walk around like, oh my God, I'm a mind controlled zombie, or else like whatever. I mean, never give something more power than it has, but recognize what it is. Always be balanced, be balanced and clear as you can in, the span of life that's allocated to you in your particular circumstances and whatever. So make the best of it, because what else are you going to do? Die? Well, that's going to happen anyway. So just do your best. But so that was kind of a rambling uh, story, but that's basically it. And like I said, I just, because though I have an interconnected, looking at multiple phenomena. You could say multiple sectors. You say like an economic change of distribution specifics. You have, chains of distribution in terms of, media, et cetera, et cetera. On and on. So but trying to keep sort of not just taking one piece, but try to see how they intersect, to create a whole, which is sort of a multidimensional hologram in a certain degree. So, go
Yeah, Jan Irvin is an interesting figure in himself, and I have my own kind of Jan Irvin story. So I was, back in 2008, 2009 timeline, listening to a lot of Terence McKenna, and getting into his book, and which is a great audio book. The way they did that production. Uh, what is it called? Real Hallucination. Is that what the book's called? And getting into that, and I'm not promoting McKenna, and especially after being familiar with Jan's work, there's like you said, like you enjoy something and then you realize later, but the funny thing is Jan Irvin was responsible basically for putting a lot of Terence McKenna's work online. So uh, most of the stuff that I think was out there at that time basically came out of Jan Irvin's archives, something he probably, not too happy to admit, but I think he says he regrets doing that. But interestingly enough, at the time, my sister introduced me to Richard Grove's podcast, the Peace Revolution podcast, because I was talking about Terence McKenna to her. So for her, it linked, oh, well, you should check out the Peace Revolution podcast. Well, who's involved heavily in producing that but Jan Irvin? And that was sort of an entry point for me, sort of one of the horsemen of my own personal apocalypse was Richard Grove and his work. And Jan Irvin was right there doing a lot of the episodes with him with his research and his style. And uh, going back and reviewing some of those interviews with you and Jan, I appreciate, again, his diligence and his attention to detail and passion for what he was doing. I know he's maybe in a little bit of a different direction now, and whatever he's doing, I hope he's doing great. I haven't seen him producing too much media, but yeah, just my own little Jan Irvin story there. And also, something you want to say about that?
Yeah. So, that's really one of the things that people can have a lot of trouble about is that what you think is, these are the guys, say Terrence McKenna, heroic dose, I mean, and Jan was like, he was way in the mushrooms, man. He's like, you know, he was, and he was really into it. But the thing is, this is in a certain way, like this is presented, this is how you become free. This is how you become, you know, aware, you become fully alive, you do all these things. So um it can be kind of, not to say destabilizing, but it's like, but now if I listen to Terrence McKenna now, you see these types of steerages that are taking you where are you really gonna go, man? You're not gonna get to what you think you're gonna get to. And um and in fact, you may do some harm, and we could go. There's other elements involved in this, like with other things that are a
Yeah,
little
totally
more
agree.
diabolical. But yeah, so that's cool. But he was able to, not only a 180, but like really complete opposite.
Yeah,
So that
and
that
he
shows
talks about
integrity.
that stuff online, so we're not like, not here in an interview talking bad about Jan. He would say those things in his own recording, so it's not, about his past. And I think that's good. I think people should correct themselves, especially when they put themselves out publicly. You should be willing to do that, even if it takes years out of your way to go back and kind of do those corrections. That's kind of where the gold is sometimes, to show other people that process, and then also admit where you were wrong. And usually there's quite a bit to uncover there as well. But yeah, I have my own freedom, festival experience as well, that also tied into what you were saying. And it was more of a freedom oriented event. I don't know if the one you were talking about where the music just sort of had this vibe, but there was this festival. I won't name it specifically, but it had gone on for about a decade pretty successfully as like a low key type of thing. But it was getting quite popular and a lot of, traction, I would say, in like a experiment for the decentralization of a marketplace, let's say, was the idea. An agorist marketplace, if you're familiar with that term. And these guys and this kind of, yeah, Rainbow was there, but the crew that came in and sort of blew this thing up were sort of these rogue agents that came in with their sound systems and completely obliterated that event, basically, in the span of a weekend. All the people that wanted to be there and put the energy into that event were basically left with such a feeling, like you were saying, that they won't go back, including our family, because it was just too much. And in my opinion, it was done intentionally, but that's a different investigation. We do have some actual evidence, some of these people being agents, or very recently before they were at that event, doing various things with the Trump administration. So they were politically involved. But yeah, so it was done through the music, and it was designed in such a way that the people still talk about it as a reason for not wanting to go back to that event.
One of the things that is really I mean, just in general, is of central importance is to learn to reactivate your true intuition, and really be able to sense this seems wrong, and know that is. But see, a lot of the stuff, like and I did. It was some of this is in hindsight, right? I'm looking back, like, well, okay, like when I was doing punk rock when I was like 15, 16. I mean, it seemed like really amazing, really free and stuff like that. But they're also, just especially like, you get into these sort of heavy duty, more some of the types of rock scenes, and even especially festivals, realizing like, in truth, I'm not having a good time, and this is it's it, it- it's not a congruent, healthy environment, just because. But the thing is that we have, as humans, there's I don't have a mute button, so but there's a strong tendency to And in fact, it's an organic tendency, which is based on sort of our resonant. I mean, the resonance, certain types of emotions and stuff like these, we connect also with types of frequency things that we experience. Emotion is a type of frequency or whatever. It depends on how you frame it. It depends on your clarity of your actual, how you can operate your human body. But noticing like this is like, I'm not really having fun, even though I'm supposed to be. I'm at this show and I'm with, I'm seeing like a Grateful Dead, but there's something that is feels off or feels weird. And there's something here that is makes me very uncomfortable, even though I'm so lucky to be here and see Jerry, and it's like everyone's having fun and everyone is so excited. But what do in my, what I mean? And that's sometimes we get that split between like, oh, well, I feel uncomfortable, but there's something wrong with me. Well, maybe there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe the thing is that this is not, there is something here, and it may be occurring on a level that you're not even completely outside of your conscious awareness, that is may impact you and may impact you either dramatically or slightly. But every time you take a choice and move further in, next step. And then, then you'll, oh, now I'm enjoying this. I was uncomfortable at first, hanging out with Johnny, having a few beers, and now I'm comfortable, drinking a full bottle of whiskey every day. Wow, I'm successful, right? I'm not comfortable, you know what I mean? But there's certain things like you get, but usually that sense comes right at the inception, and it won't last that long. And once you're conditioning yourself, you're also sort of, you're offering yourself, you're consenting. So that's a very important process, that is undergone. And I mean, many, people I've known or know, and things like that. I've seen like just around that Grateful Dead, or just sort of post Fish, that kind of thing, and just seeing really intelligent people, and I don't know where they are now, but I mean, even in high school, I had a friend who was like, mathematical genius, track star, and he got into Timothy Leary and LSD. And my friend ran into him like, 10 years later, and he was on the street selling, tie dyes or something, and just living on living on the bus. And he was just, and he's like, man, you got to go to the clear light. That's what Leary says. And I guess this guy, his whole life is gone. I mean, I don't know, he basically became like a bum, but the thing is, when you're integrated into that system, it doesn't necessarily mean that, if you live, if you're a Roma gypsy and you live in a caravan or whatever, but if you, what is your purpose, or who are you really? And if you step into these things, like if you do things that you can't just extract yourself. It's like, oh, you know what I mean? Certain things you've gone too far. And by the time you extract yourself, you have lost a lot of yourself along in that extraction process. But I've just seen enough people, um, absolutely, I would say, I hate to say ruined, but I mean, maybe they think maybe they're happy. Okay. They're high all the time, and, they don't care. But, to me, that doesn't, it seems like you're living in a dream you can't wake up from. And so that's not a good place to be. So anyway, so that's, these things, and you could, so many aspects, right? But this is, um, a very important point. And one of the things that's happened in our culture in general is just a very, don't trust yourself. You got to trust an expert. B, you have to have enough sense of who you really are, and to be objective and clear, and not just project your own emotions on every situation. Be clear, learn to be clear, and that's very important. And then C is that, we're just inundated with just, and one thing I think it just started when I was working with Jan, but this playing of these same songs, same classic rock tunes. You go to the grocery store, you go to the gas station, you go to the whatever, they're playing the same music, and this stuff is all, um,
The
you know,
boomer rock, I guess, right? The boomer rock. Is that an offensive term to some?
yeah, no, I think it's whatever you want to call it, but you hear you
No,
hear
yeah,
different things,
totally.
but this,
Absolutely. I
it's
love
like,
that point that you make with
you know,
Jan,
it,
because you can observe it. You can go out after hearing this and just say, well, yeah, they're right. Is in fact indeed the case, that there's these repetitive songs at the grocery store, at the gas station. So that's
yeah,
pretty obvious.
and yeah, and so this, see, to understand that a little bit requires and I also did work in, it's called cognitive ethnomusicology. So a little more, research based, music perception and stuff, which is really fascinating, actually. It's pretty amazing. But the thing is, so the Muzak itself, right? So Muzak itself developed, it was a scientific technology. That's how they explained it. So this is initially, they would look at like office spaces where people are working, and then the types of work they have to do, and especially like arousal and rest. So when people start to get a little bit spaced out, work quality goes down, changing the music, changing the rhythms of the music based on the cycle of the kind of work you want to get out from your workers, and the type of, depending on the requirements of that work. And then also to maximize your assets, whatever your human resource, to get the most money out of it. So that's what Muzak initially developed. It was a scientific methodology, and people make fun, the old Muzak stuff. I kind of miss that. It's kind that, because that was like a lot of strings. I mean, the thing is, it was so innocuous. You didn't really, most people didn't even listen to it. It was actually meant to be background, but it was again
So when
designed with.
you say Muzak, you're not saying music wrong. You're saying, just slow that
It's a
down for people.
Muzak
What is that?
Corporation.
Yeah, what is that?
M Muzak, Muzak. So the Muzak Corporation, and so people talk like elevator music, right? That's and so they developed this, um, with experimental data, with knowledge of, you can say knowledge of psychobiology, knowledge of, physiology, knowledge of sort of, basic relational, group dynamics, etc. So it was, it's scientific, it's scientifically based, and so that's how it became so ubiquitous. And then it, branched out from just worker type of, crews, to all types of environments, shopping, elevators, actually, to keep people, um, so in use since 1934. So General George Squire founded the Muzak Corporation, in
General George
1930.
Squire, what a name. I wonder if that has anything to do with propaganda and all the Eddie Bernays at all in that
You
time
know,
period.
I mean, um, you know, it's, this is different from propaganda. Okay. So propaganda is a type of informational, input that is going to be primarily emotional and cognitive. So, um, the emotion, so you're going to have whatever type of propaganda you want to think of. And propaganda, it propaganda is a way of really pushing a message through. And so propaganda can actually, it
You
doesn't
could
necessarily mean
take the
propaganda. It's a
freedom
technique.
torches around that same time period, right? And just to keep it in that vein, that's
Well,
more direct in your face, is what you're saying, kind of.
yeah, yeah. So that, no, that's a different type of, so that's a different type of, procedure and desired outcome. And this is working. So propaganda is working on, you could say cognitive personality, conscious personality traits, identity. It's working on emotion. It's working on desire, things like that. It's whatever, things like that. So that's propaganda, right? But Muzak is entirely different, which makes it, you know, slightly more interesting, because it's working on the unconscious threshold. It is not working with conscious memory, attention, awareness. In fact, for it to work the best, it should be invisible, basically. It's kind of invisible. Like, and again, now for us, even though hearing a specific song, it's almost invisible for people, right? I think most people aren't even gonna, oh yeah, they are playing music here. Unless you're a musician. I mean, it's a song you like, but even noticing that this is something, why, or what is it? What is the, effect or influences, or just even noticing it. Music is much more, you can think of like, the super cheesy like strings and the, this things, but this was designed to, like, through different types of timbre, different types of rhythm and speed, just music as an actual functional, um, a modifier of physiology and of attention and of, mood regulation, not emotion, but mood. And mood is much more primary than emotion, right? So mood is sort of your background. So music is a background, which is by and large unconscious for most people. And so I'm glad you brought that up, but it's a very fundamental distinction, right? If you distinguish between
Good distinction.
propaganda and music, which is, so music is not, it's there is no, in fact, you want to bypass the conscious mind. You want to bypass cognitive processes. You're bypassing even emotional responses. Yeah, that's why it was so cheesy, right? You're bypassing, you're not generating emotion directly, right? But you're changing you're changing people's heart rates, this, that, and you're changing their, cognitive functioning level in terms of attention. Like you're gonna be concentrated, you're gonna be distracted, right? You're gonna be in a you're gonna be in a compliant mood. You will be in a docile mood. You will listen to your boss, whatever it may be. Does that make sense? But it's not, it's a little more
Oh
subtle,
wow.
but it's all,
I mean, what you're saying
it's,
totally makes sense. Yeah, and it makes me wonder some questions about protecting against that. You mentioned earlier you have these songs back there; they're just in there. Totally agree. I mean, I'm walking around singing songs from cartoons that I saw when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. Right? Where is this song located? The subconscious, very interesting topic, right? Well, how do we access this? How do Bruce Lipton's work? I think is the closest, or that kind of information about how to approach addressing the subconscious layers of our mind to possibly reprogram or deprogram or to clean out some of that stuff. It's not so much a direct thing you can do, right? You can't just meditate this away or psychoanalysis. Doctor, I have a problem. Let's get these things that maybe there are some drugs that they can give you to stop some of the thoughts or whatever, right? Or that make you feel like you've progressed in doing that. But I would say that that's just covering it up, not necessarily really addressing. So yeah, you can get into like a question of how do you get in there and deprogram that stuff, Hans? And
well,
also, I have some other stuff that I want to show you with frequencies that I'd like to get into after you
okay,
address that
sure.
part.
So that's really a huge, topic, and
Totally.
I don't really like to go into this much, but I mean, I really got, again, I just kind of do it. I didn't really even, I didn't think so much about impacts, but I mean, I had a lot, and like serious, like things happened to me, like direct stuff, and including being, run off the pit maneuver by a guy that turns out he was like an FBI agent from Purdue, etc. I mean, I mean, lots and lots of things. So I had to deal with a lot of, for better or worse, right? So I've had to really go through some very intense things that um so the deprogramming for me is connected with a sort of a holistic approach to, the I would say it's really the maximization of your full potential in reality, in the closest you can come to the true reality, which is, yeah. And that's the distinction between things that, if you want to change something on the surface, but are you really going to step across this threshold? So that's a little my deeper sense of that. I won't necessarily go into that unless it's of interest. But in terms of deprogramming, so the thing to understand is that, you know, um, we really have such a small fractional level of ourselves in our conscious minds. It's a tiny, 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 tiny fraction, right? It is very, very small. And it is a field, right? It's a field of particular, um, uh, basically what you're focusing on or how this is constructed. Now I have some stuff I'm going to come out about this very, very important thing. It goes into like neuroscience. I'll just write that down. I won't necessarily bring that up. This is a whole nother topic. But so one of the things is that you just I mean, if the as you know, in terms of like uh the the music, and then these little, you could say these are like little like sort of cybernetic governance impacts that are implanted some places in your brain. It could also be in the physical body. These can create a type of a network that can create all kinds of states, and they can even create a sense of a totally permanent state, right? Like, people like to talk about being, anxiety. I have stress, problem with stress. I'm depressed. Um, and these kind of things, I cut through them with a sword, man. You can't. There's a lot of stuff that's way deeper than that. So don't get hung up on that. But you create these states, or even relational things, or even how you judge yourself, how you look at other people, especially like sexual relationships, or your relationship to what you think you can do, what you can't do, how you approach yourself in the world, how you relate to others. But it's like really deep things can be. Um, so if I'm not being clear, you can bring it. But what I'm trying to say is that, I could draw a picture, but you have to see as it's not like this. Let's say, okay, the a sense that I hate my father. Okay, let's just say that, or I'm against my parents' authority. Say that's sort of a mindset or an attitude, or just a denigration of that. It could be completely subconscious, but let's say, how would that be built up? So it could be that, it's polyvalent, but say like show All in the Family, right? Married with children. The father's portrayed like a buffoon, right? Then you go into lots of rock stuff, breaking away from the parents, that whole 60s thing. And so there's different types of movements. Rebellion is normal. You should do rebellion, cut, grow a mohawk, or wear lipstick, cut your Johnson off, do whatever you want to do. You got to rebel. It's part of it. I mean, which is this again. So then there creates an image of the father, and then maybe your father has been influenced by the work of Dr. Spock, right? Not from Star Trek, but the Dr. Spock, the child psychologist who promoted this method that was so pernicious and pervasive. And I mean, literally at extreme, like, the child is always right. You never scold them. You never discipline them. You let them do whatever you want. And I've heard, stories of people, they're really hardcore into this. They go out to dinner, and the teenage son is like running around, like smacking his dad in the head, and like, telling like dirty jokes, at a restaurant, and they don't say a word. And so this very permissive type of parenting. And so, or else your father is abusive, whatever, or something that gets programmed in your mind. It's linked to these music and media imprints that are reinforcing these images. What degree actual is coming from your actual life experience, and what is being energized, right? And it becomes your frame of reference. And then that can affect your own life as a father, how you treat, how you take the seriousness of it. Maybe you blow it off. You say, "Oh, I don't care about, I'll just leave my kids." They don't say like, this is a sacred duty to be a father. It's extremely important. Many people feel that way. Many people don't. Okay. And, or else not maintaining the relationship with the mother. So hopefully I'm not getting too deep, but this is kind of how they create images of ourself. And usually, at least my awareness of it, or my study, is these are, you will find imprints of these along the way that have shaped certain things, and they push people into types of modes potentially, right? And so, and it reduces your freedom, because you're not, I don't want some crap, it's just, the cool thing about it is it's not that difficult to negate that. But the main thing is to, um, these are sort of, these are, so that, as I mentioned, the conscious mind is very small, but you can open up your field, right? So that means just sort of being aware of things that are arising in the back of your mind, staying in the present of what you're doing, but start to notice that. And then if you do, or it's something, some image, a lot of times it's going to be very subtle. It may flash, right? It may, because this is, completely outside of your conscious threshold, but yet it is, if there's an impact of it, there's some level it's going to hit, right? Or it's going to impact you. So, um, and so that's one thing. And so catching this, it's just noticing the threshold, noticing, you can even notice things. Okay, well, I don't like, either it can be in relational things in the world, in your life. Like, okay, I don't like these types of situations that I'm in, or I don't like this. I'd like to change this. I think this can be better. I don't like some, again, there's a tendency, you don't want to go into this thing of, you lock yourself into a trauma, because this is one of the major things that I have a real issue with right now that is really devastating people. Oh, I'm traumatized. There's something. I don't need to make fun of it, but in a certain way, like, what is that? What is the trauma?
Or
What?
the anxiety. And I just hit a button that switched the scene to a different thing. People can ignore that. That wasn't a cut in the thing. I didn't cut out what Hans was saying. But yeah, like how about, like you were saying about anxiety.
Yeah. So
People
anxiety.
want
Yeah.
to
So
really focus on now my
you
anxiety,
just
but what
remove
if
it.
that's the good thing that's actually going to push you forward? And there's positive aspects of anxiety, right?
Well,
But we go to try to
well,
immediately erase it, right?
well, I that's something I did myself. So completely, like, I don't really experience any stress or anxiety, almost never. Even in very stressful situations. I'll give just an example. So I'm playing at this music festival. I'm playing sitar, which is, very demanding instrument. And it's a big, huge, there's like a giant festival. I got to get in and out, get to the stage. And I'm walking out the door, and you get these very thick calluses. And when I close the door, somehow there's like a pressure point, and the whole top of my finger just popped off. Like, and the blood is just, I mean, just gushing blood. It's literally, you can just see the skin is gone, and I got to play sitar. And this finger without this finger, you can't play sitar. It's like, I only, use two fingers. Without this finger, you can't do it. And I'm like, and literally blood is just, I mean, gushing. And so I ended up, and my wife's like, "Oh my God, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm feeling dizzy." But I'm like, okay, well, let's see. What can I do? Yeah, there's a lot of blood. Oh my God. Okay, let's put some stuff on it. And then I had like a bloody towel wrapped on my hand, right? And I'm driving, like, okay, I'm going to get to the festival, and I'm going to, I'm just going to go to the first aid tent. So I get there, then they won't let us in the entrance. Everything is wrong. By the time we get in, I have to walk this whole distance still with this, like, bathroom towel in my hand. I get to the thing, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, we can't help you. Are you going to be able to play?" And I said, "Well, if I can play, I'm going to play. If I can't, I can't." Right. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty messed up. I was going to say pretty fucked up, but yeah, I mean, it's not just like, oh, I got a cut. It's like the whole top of my finger is detached. It's
So
still
is there
attached to
some
the,
duct tape coming up in this story?
no, no, no. Anyways, so I went there, but see, all these are extremely stressful events. Plus I have to perform a concert,
Right.
on a huge stage, outside, but at no point,
You
yes,
didn't
I
let it
to
overwhelm
play.
you.
Yeah, and then I spent an hour trying to find the first aid tent. They had wrong locations on the map. The guys would take me and drop me. It's a gigantic park, a huge area, not small. Eventually I got there. They, oh, we don't have that. We can't do that. Like some kind of liquid bandage. I'm like, come on, guys. But anyways, I got it. And then I played the concert. Somehow I had to modify what I was doing. I played the concert, but this is like intense stress causing things, and actual physical injury, and actual demanding circumstances. So within that, you convert stress into adrenaline, and you just but literally I
Right.
did not get
It
stressed at
didn't
all.
cripple
And
you.
no, well, no, I didn't feel any stress at all. I did not feel stress. I did not get stressed about it, because I've actually pretty much knocked it out of myself deliberately. Because it happened that, I realized that, I built this recording studio, I had this production stuff, and then I had, whatever kinds of deadlines, and my wife said, "You have to write this thing and this, we have our own business," and just endless. And I just was like, forget it. I realized that I was like living in this sea of stress, and I would normalized it. And it's like I was like, well, um, I mean, it just was how I to get work done. I would get stressed about it. It was like, motivator, or just it was like a background. And I was like, forget it. I'm done with this. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go off to this. I'm going to go rent a cabin. If I miss deadlines. And I did this, and it took a while. But it's like I literally don't get stressed at all, and I don't have any problems with that. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't. So but I used to a lot. I'm saying like
I
it was
guess what I
I
meant was more in line with this quote, and you can also say, hey, this is not exactly what I was saying either, but Carl Jung, obviously controversial figure. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that's a quote that goes around quite a bit. To me, it resonated with what you were saying, like, the way that one of the tools that you're talking about, deprogramming, reprogramming, whatever, is becoming aware of the programming, or becoming aware of the technocratic cybernetic control system and how it influences your own programming, like you were saying, where not being aware of that, even if it did stir up some anxiety to start thinking about that, that's what I think the quote kind of goes into, is like, well, that makes me feel uncomfortable. That's making me feel anxious. I don't want to think about that. And then you kind of aren't even getting on the path to understanding that
well,
maybe there's levels where you're being controlled.
it becomes, you realize that a lot of people operate with this as a normal part of life. It is not a normal part of life. It is an abuse of your nervous system and your glandular secretions. I mean, actual stress is for, yes, I know. And I had an actual stress experience in 2022. And that was where I was in this remote mountain village. Actually, I had gone back to where I'd written that book. And um, I never posted the video, but I'm up there, way at the top of the mountain, 6, 7 in the morning, and I'm start walking through the village, and I see people like coming out of the hills with these huge machete things, and it was really, it was kind of like a horror movie. You see people as like, they have like these weird like bird, they're walking, and then but these things they use, man, I mean, these are like sickles. I mean, you can take a tree down with them. They're raised, I mean, because they work on the hills, and so I'm walking. By the time I get and I'm filming this, and I'm like, oh, it seems like I'm in a zombie movie. I'm sure it's fine. I get to the entrance of like it's about, I don't know, 3,000 feet down drop. It's like a cliff face, but there's a road, and the crossroads, and the guy's like, show me your passport. Then as I do, all these people came. I was surrounded. They're all armed. They all have weapons. They they had one guy had a gun, but it was like, some kind of archaic thing. But I mean, they had but I had this, intuition that I just ran right at the split second. I got hit. This guy had a huge mace. He hit me with the mace, and these people were like, I mean, they're mountain people, so they're really fast, and whatever. So they, and then I escaped, and they were throwing rocks above me on the trail, and they were going to kill me. 100%, they're going to kill me. I was going to be dead, and I survived. That's what stress is for. That's what your actual stress thing. It is life or death. And you don't need to, I mean, this has been conditioned into us. You don't need, unless it is actual, unless, you are about to die, or it's really, really serious, right? Okay, maybe, yeah, if you're working, I'm not saying like, I don't know if you're like there's going to be like a huge plane crash and you're an air traffic controller, but then it's used in that,
That's what
it's
I'm
that
supposed to be
extra.
doing now, but I'm in this interview instead.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that
Yeah, I
it
hear you.
gives you a boost, but it's
There
a
shouldn't be
very,
an
very rare.
underlying background. Oh my God, this
It,
email. Oh my God, this person texted me. And that's kind of what it becomes. And oh, there's a notification. And not that it's that jarring, but this
well, no, it's
underlying, yeah.
it's a constant. And it
Hmm.
just little flares. It's just little, maybe it's a pinprick, but it it it's
Right.
a wrong. It's a totally.
It's
To
engaging a
me, it.
system that was designed for survival, but we're not in that situation most of the time. I hear what you're saying. And but we're almost like torturing ourselves with reacting to things as if they were critical in that way.
Yeah, and it's something that it's normalized, and people are like, oh, I'm really stressed. I have this project, and you feel important. Oh, I'm so stressed, and then I'm stressed so I can be an asshole, or I'm stressed so I can, and I'm important. I'm busy. I'm stressed.
Yeah,
Like,
how you doing today? Busy. It's like a really common response, right?
yeah, yeah, and so I just like, why? I mean, if you want to do that to yourself, do it. But if you don't need to do it, eliminate it. And and the thing is that I mean, I literally like, I mean, so many things, situations that are actually stressful. I just handle it. I take care of it. It doesn't, no stress. I mean, yeah, occasionally something will come up or something, trigger, but very, very, very rarely, like almost never, from really being what you're saying. That what I discovered, and I'm just using this as an example, but what I discovered was that there's momentary things or situations. I did have a lot of pressure on me at that time as well, like deadlines and et cetera. But like, actually, that there was a whole layer of myself that was sort of locked into this, right? It was kind of deep. It was a deep layer. It was totally background. You know, you don't, I didn't even know it was there. And so that was a little bit, but again, it's gone, man. It's like, so, I mean, and it's nice. It's like, okay, I got all that energy back of myself, and I don't, and people will do things to me. Like, I did this concert. Am I being too anecdotal? I should probably stop doing this, but just the way I am. So I don't have I don't have a handler like in the closet. Hans, don't say that.
All good.
We'll get out the
No,
taser.
stories are
But
how we communicate, in the
yeah,
best
no,
way.
no, but I like to say things that at least I know directly too, if I'm not,
Hmm.
talking about stuff. So, no, what I'm saying is I've been trying to condition myself not to talk so much like personal stuff, but whatever. So I had this concert. It was at a university. They had really screwed me over. I was teaching there, and there was all these politics. So I had some kind of bad blood there, but it was a major concert with this composer, Indian lady, but she full orchestra, symphonic band, and I'm playing tabla. I can play tabla, but I'm playing with symphonic score, like it was last minute that I even got this gig, and it's the composers there in the audience. Is there's like four or five. It's in a classical music hall. It's not Planet Joe's Pub or something. But and so then like they completely effed with me. The conductor. Like I didn't have monitors, and then okay, we have dress rehearsal the day of the show, right? And then so I'm playing it's brass. I mean, symphonic. You can't hear anything, man. If I don't have a monitor, I can't hear anything I'm playing. Nothing. So, but anyways, the day of the dress rehearsal, I didn't even really have. They weren't able to get through the piece. Things were off. The this was that. I don't. And but anyways, the day, I get this call at 11 a.m. It's a snowstorm. She's like, well, what's her name? The lady, some academic spider in a web. He's like, oh, well, why aren't you here? The entire orchestra and symphony is waiting on you. I said, well, on my schedule, you told me dress rehearsal 1 p.m. No, it's at 11 a.m. And it's, she's like, well, don't get in a car wreck. They're waiting. I'll try to keep them happy. Maybe they can do something else. Everybody's waiting on you. Everybody's here. And it's a friggin' blizzard. And you know what? I just said, I didn't say it. I thought that's not, you screwed up. I didn't screw up. I'll get there when I get there. It's not my fault. I was given wrong information. I'll, if, and I'm not going to drive, I'm not going to like go 90 miles an hour and risk my car. I'm not going to I didn't even, and everything about that was stressful. Even the performance. I mean, it was pretty daunting for me. I mean, I'm not, I know tabla, but I'm not like pro tabla player, and I'm playing, orchestral score, like, it's like, you can't just jam out. I guess you can, but it's not advisable. But anyways, they just give an example with the cues of where I used to teach, and she was literally triggering me. And then during the performance, the monitor was off. But I did it. You can see the video. I nailed it. And at no point, I said, I will not, you're not going to impose upon me. I'm not responsible for what you have done. I'm going to be there. I know who I am. I know what I am. I'll do the best I can. You know, That's it. It's not gonna phase me. Even though it is technically it's stressful, but I'm not gonna get stressed about it because but this is we get locked into this mechanistic patterning and this creates a type of feeling. You need to feel grounded as you are in your life, as you are just your actual right here. I feel great. I'm alive. That's it. That's where you want to be at all the time, much of the time, because that's the reality. When I said reality, where you here we are, right? So things that, but you have to this discernment, differentiation, and then the thing is that to see that these, you can program in all kinds of behaviors, all kinds of culturally specific things. You see different types of traits in different cultures. You see, but this is an example of something that what does it do? Okay, so you're burning out your adrenal system. This connects your whole endocrinal system. You're generating cortisol, which is a neurotoxin. You're damaging your brain. It feels like crap unless you adjust to yourself somehow that I like being stressed. And you know, don't normalize it. Say,
Just
no, this isn't
coffee,
normal.
more coffee.
Yeah, it would, but what I'm saying is like it's not necessary, and you
Right.
can
You don't need to keep
eliminate it.
pumping that button. Yeah. Not that cortisol is not normal for your circadian rhythm, right? But yeah, just the high levels or late in the day cortisol spikes.
Yeah, but see, here's trying to tie this back in. See, I didn't even get into the scientific, the neuroscience stuff. I
Yeah.
so
No, it's
it
all
kept
good.
going, but so this is where really you start noticing your media input and things like that, right? So you say there's certain types of music you may listen to it to relax. Oh, I want to hear this. If you subtle, you wait this music or this television show, or maybe there's certain people that, maybe you don't need to spend so much time with them, or whatever it may be. As especially like say music, you say, wait, this is actually, this allows me to release my anger at the, at my day, or just makes me amped up, and it depends, but sometimes, like a very good friend of mine, he was really into Marilyn Manson and what it did to his brain, but he normalized that. So there's a process, and this is especially music has this function, um, or it can have this function, right? So that the studies would say like the plants, and you're playing classical music, and they flourish, and you play hard rock, heavy metal, they die. Okay, and so basically there is this is like say like doom scrolling is an example of this, right? So this is a type of it's a self-reinforcing energetic feedback loop. Mind, thought, body, emotion, physiology, posture, um, and basically your awareness framing of and your mood, right? So you want your mood not to be stressed. You want them to be calm, relaxed, powerful. Because what else are you going to do? You're going to lie down and let them stomp on you? No, I mean, it's sort of way I approach it almost aggressively. Like you are not going to make me stress. I'm not going to feel, and I don't. And but the thing is that you notice these things, like I mentioned, and this is where the media inputs and the music can be very, very powerful. Is we may have sort of created a life world that we just accept, right? I accept that this is my life space. This is what I do. After every day after work, I go to the bar. Every day I go, I do the, um, just part of it. Just notice you get clarity and just say it, make a choice, and then just say okay. And so and we don't want to. I mean, one thing I think that I mean, somebody. I mean, you have to go through stuff. You have to be very resilient. You have to have your inner will, your self, and your connection. Whether you try to expand your connection out much bigger than yourself. Don't just think of think yourself. You're interconnected. Think of how impacts you have. And a little bit is sometimes you step out of this is me, I have to do this. No, you step out and look into yourself in the relational field of your life. And and even sometimes you just say, well, I think that I would be a better parent if I could unwind some of these things. I think I'll be a better parent. I'd like to be a better parent. And you do it. And sorry, but going back to what I was saying is the music is that you get a negative input and it inverts your brain. So actually there's a fear, you can say like a fear response. And so any emotion like fear isn't, if you don't have any fear at all, you probably die because, because you just whatever. So fear is necessary when it's necessary, but it's absolutely not necessary when it's not necessary. So it's the recognition, and it really is circumstantial, and but also you trust it. Sometimes the fear that people misinterpret, like say you're going into a club or you're going to be involved, or I'm going to go, out in the forest and I'm going to take a bunch of ayahuasca with these guys, you know, or something like that. And you have some fear a little bit. And so, and look, I made this mistake. I mean, not that particular one, but per se. But I mean, of that noticing, well, oh, that you're like, oh, well, maybe I'm not. I'm afraid to take the leap. I'm staying in my box. I got to step out of my comfort zone. Well, or maybe not. Maybe this is, but it won't last long. That's the thing. It won't last long. It's a little window. You got to catch these windows of what's important. So, anyways, what happens is that you're funneling what you're going to naturally have an aversion to because it's creating maybe a dissociative state. It's creating a disembodiment. It's creating anxiety. It's creating anger. It's creating guilt. It's creating shame. It's creating self pity. Whatever, or something, or it's just creating a very selfish person that only cares about themselves. It's just completely self absorbed, whatever it may be. But things that we have intuitionally, this is bad for you, just like smoking, the first cigarette, oh god, this is terrible, and then you go over that, and then next thing you know, you smoke all the time. So it's similar, but it's an addiction to harmful things that are damaging you. Listening to Marilyn Manson, fomenting self-hatred, anger, despair, darkness, evil, whatever. And you're just inputting this into yourself. And you're not, instead of that, the resonance that's actually damaging you, your mind is reinterpreting that as a pleasure. So you're getting pleasure out of that. So you're getting pleasure out of what is causing harm or what is a negative input, and then you're like reverse cycling your body system, and you
Or
get stuck
listening
into
to
this loop.
Marilyn Manson while you're going to the gym too often, right? So the gym, you feel good, but then there's the people that overdo it. They're actually harming themselves, similar to what you're saying, and they're tolerating it, and it feels good, right? But that harming yourself is feeling good. You're overdoing it. So it's another parallel there.
Yeah, and so like the doom scrolling is sort of the most recent. I did a show on this, and
Oh,
just
right.
researching it, it was like, wow, this is like it literally. I mean, to do this much damage to yourself with something that seems so innocuous, there's nothing that compares that I can think of any of the world. Nothing. I mean, if you want to do the kind of damage that's doing to your actual physical brain is shrinking. You're physically damaging your brain in months, in maybe a year or something, which yeah, you can obviously, like say alcohol, which I think overall, if that's one of the things like I've noticed, like, well, do I really like this? Do I like this? What is I like to have a clear mind, right? To me, the best buzz is mental clarity, relaxation, but also challenging, doing things that are interesting, and that doesn't necessarily assist me in that process, even though
No,
like
I love
oh,
what you
sorry.
said earlier about becoming the best version of yourself as a challenge and having that replace, you're not going to lose your fear, right? But you can work through it with courage. And if you have a reason to, hey, this is challenging me. I'm trying to become a better person. I'm trying to learn more. I love that as a solution that you offered because it's not a common answer. Most people would try to describe it as an actual approach to deprogramming. That seems like more of an offset and maybe like a Viktor Frankl search for meaning kind of an answer.
Well, in terms of my understanding and knowledge, and so I thank all the people that have done all the really very dangerous and vicious things to me over the years, just for making me so much stronger, So the truth, in truth, absolute truth. And I
Right.
won't go. I mean,
No,
I
that's
mean, even
another good
like,
point. That's another good point. Oh my God, this bad thing. Or a challenge that I'm going to grow from. This,
yeah,
two different perspectives. Oh my God. Or welcoming it as the thing that's going to make you grow and push you. You know, that's a different mindset depending on how you take it. You may collapse from this event, or it could push you to become better. Not, but again, like keeping in balance with this, are you torturing yourself on the wheel, right? Like, oh yeah, another challenge, bring it on, you know, whatever. I'm already cranking, let's go. So there's, yeah, you know, it's like, which gear are you in? Are you revving your engine in second gear at, you know, 4,500 RPMs, or can you back shift it down to fifth gear and maybe just keep cruising along, you know?
Yeah, well, and I can get into this a little bit more too about so that how to use your subconscious and how to understand the actual like because I what's fun about this to me is that I'll just say one thing. Like, this is actually not from Viktor Frankl, but from, I mean, sort of my own understanding, but it's also, I think, gosh, what is it? I forget that it's, some type of, it's connected with dance and some kind of movement thing in a specific field. I'm forgetting the name. There's like, it's not kinesiology, but whatever that is, I wasn't like, I'm not a dancer per se, but
The
what it
dance
said is that
Merkabra.
so your conscious mind cannot change your like if you say consciously, okay, I want to relax, I need to relax right now, I gotta relax. You are not going to relax per se, right? So your body, it's your unconscious mind that is actually changing your body, changing your heart rate, releasing muscles, things like that. So how do you access that in a way that is most efficacious? It's easy and creates more integration. So the more of your sort of unconscious that you integrate in your conscious mind, depending on the filter or framing of your perception, that's very, very important too. You got to learn to, if you do narrow band focus, you do narrow band focus. Sometimes this is a situation, it's really heavy, but I'm going to bracket this. This is a phenomenology. Husserl also influenced me a bit. He did, study of consciousness, right? The whole study of consciousness. Edmund Husserl, he was going to make philosophy into an objective science because he said nothing without consciousness, nothing is there. But anyways, bracketing means you're going to set this aside, right? So because, okay, even it may be it's true, it's real, but I know that for what I'm doing right now, I don't want to get this huge cloud of energy. I want to just have a narrow band focus. I'm going to do what I'm doing. I'm aware it's there, but I want to right now. It's something that if I try to deal with it, it's going to really. I'm not in a space to do that right now. That's okay too. You learn situationally,
I'm
but going
curious,
back,
would that be more visual to you? I've heard people that this is like they'll visualize that process. And I
um,
kind of been working on that. Looking at this muck, I understand the muck is there. I'm going to kind of move it to the side a little bit
I
and just working through it.
I've studied like, say like NLP stuff pretty in depth, like not just as a buzzword, but so I'll be honest, NLP really didn't work for me. And I think so the visualization, um, the one of the major deficits, I think, of a lot of the materials, processes, and procedures of quote unquote self-improvement, optimization, whatever it may be, is that there is this construction of this ideal self that's doing this, and then you're doing it to this other part of you that's going to change. So it basically can create sort of an imaginary field that, I mean, you can see lots of people that you can live in this imaginary field and you can maybe even
Right.
enjoy it quite a bit sometimes. But, but what I mean is like, this is very interesting. There's something called the inner game of music, right? So this is a book. On surface, it seems great. It's this guy Timothy Galway who did all inner game of tennis, da da da. But they have this model: self one and self two. Self one is a part of yourself that's really critical and always sabotaging you. Self two just does everything perfectly, and so what you have to do is get more into self two and not self one. Um, well, so what you've done, you've created. Oh, I shouldn't be thinking. I'm playing. I have to do this. Okay, I'm using my. I'm looking at the score. They do talk about going to some type of immediate perception or whatever. But you've created a split. You created a modeling system that is actually, it very easily can become a loop function. It becomes a loop
Your own little
function because of a
cybernetic loop.
repetitive cycle. Yeah, creates and it creates a self-reinforce. Would you say a narrative space, right? And the thing is that as part of you, the part of you that's being pushed down, that's recognizing this really isn't working for me, or something, right? Something is off, or whatever it may be. That gets pushed down further and further until it's completely outside the, you don't even know it's there. You don't, unless you have some major event or whatever, you just, it's gone. And so you're splitting your mind, and you think you're doing good, but you're actually, so, and that, like I tried the inner game of music. It fundamentally, it is based upon a incorrect or manipulated modeling of how our minds and bodies actually function in reality, not in fantasy, not in projection, but in the closest approximation to absolute objective, there, objectively. That is the thing. That is the central point. So what I'm, so it, okay, now, so going that visualization is good, but one thing it's good also is to, you can do it gesturally, but just in a certain way. Like I said, you can't, um, and I know people have like problems like runaway thoughts, right? I can't stop thinking. I can't stop thinking. I mean, that's one thing you definitely want to have control of your thought process. And that's another thing to, a very good thing to stop. So, you have, you could focus on this, you can shift, da da da, and you can, if you want your mind to be totally quiet, you can just be quiet, right? That can happen easily too. And you have these different spaces that are available to you that are meant, I think, that if we're functioning, I would say normally, we're very optimized beings, right? As we, everything will optimize. There's a lot of things you don't even have to worry about them. They will take care of themselves. So all I'm saying is that to
Yeah.
try to approach it sort of in a different way, even something that's a little bit like, you were talking about what specific thing you said, anxiety or,
Well, no, I was just like, some people are, oh, well, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Hans, but if I don't have my self and affirmations and my rosary beads, I'm going to lose it, And like those things can be helpful, but I hear what you're saying too, that you can create this sort of confusion about your confidence in a certain area with a certain system that you're using, but it doesn't necessarily line up with reality. And, but this becomes sort of a hindrance where it may be helpful in some ways. The reason why I think I can go into one of the topics I wanted to bring up with you, which is
oh yeah.
sorry, go finish your point, and then I have just something I wanted to jump into
Oh
with
yeah.
frequencies.
Yeah, no, and this is like really, really fun actually. This is the stuff I've been like. It's really, I, I realize that sort of it's not, I've compiled stuff that, and now I find that it absolutely works and it's very effective, and but so what I want to say is that, there's a lot of the systemization, like affirmations, right? This can create an absolute psychic split. This severs the it it um it creates I mean, if there's nothing wrong per se with affirmation if it's done in a manner that is A, correct, B, you recognize you're actually giving command prompts to your subconscious. So how do you do that? And also knowing that really this is a vast space, and it's a little bit, can be a little bit unnerving or scary, like, oh my god, the size of your mind and consciousness is vast, 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 mass. I mean, whole sky, star, I mean, really big,
Yeah,
and
whole
but
universe.
you can't really handle that with your normal conscious mind. Things can you can have positive experiences, they can shred your mind. Your structure of your psyche can just be blasted apart. So anyways, so if you just create, like, if you, I don't know, just give me something, give me one thing someone would want to take care of, or just say, I have a problem with this, or I'd like not to experience this. Just throw something out.
That they feel like they don't have like a purpose, and so they're trying to connect with their real purpose.
Okay, so that, um,
It's a little bit different. If you have
yeah,
a
no,
better
I mean,
example for your point, you know.
Yeah. So that's, this is this is a different approach because this is, um, you're not, you're not moving from a place of something you want to get rid of. You're not moving from a lack, right? You are, you're choosing, I say, well, you're choosing to be who you really are and potentially can be, and to really be your full self, and to really be doing the most important work you could be doing. And, and to, you know, to find this, so the first thing is to realize, well, it's not lost. I'm just not in touch with it. So your purpose is there. Okay. You don't have to construct it. I mean, it will come together. So basically, this kind of thing, you do maybe a little systematic, just catalog like what you're doing, why you're doing it. Do you like doing it? Is this something that's important to you? And just flesh it out. And you can actually enter into a dialogue with your subconscious. You just say, how can I discover what my purpose is? And just leave a little space. Okay. How can I see what I'm doing that's preventing me from discovering my purpose? Leave a little space. Um, and if I knew what my purpose was, what would I be doing right now? And then leave a little space. And then maybe you just feel like doing something, go do it. Take action. Action is a key. So you can change this inner state much more rapidly through actual enacting of it. Enact it. Enact yourself. Act like you feel your purpose. Maybe you don't feel it, but then that's a lot easier than trying to change your thoughts. And then that's where you just have very disciplined thoughts. You're like, I'm not going to doubt myself. I'm here on this process of discovering my purpose. Right now, I don't need to go into where I feel I'm inadequate or whatever. If there's some area I need to improve, I'm going to improve that area and I'm going to be excited. What's the best way I can do this? And I'll feel better. So, you know what I mean? So then you create that kind of a state, and that kind of thing. You want to more kind of track it, you want to create some kind of guidelines or just something, follow it as a process, do it for like 7 days and just see what happens, and set that. And really the thing is to try to be open to things you normally don't see. Okay. You may just be open for types of things that you'll see, perceptions, connections that will come, and then just, and then, yeah. And then after continuing with that, after not that much time, you at least know, and you have an idea. You may not even put it in the words, but you'll have a feeling, you'll have a sense. Are you willing? Do you have the energy, the capacity, the courage to do it? Then this is the crossroads, right? And you can not do it, but I would say to do that best, then dive into it. Okay. Anyways, so answer. So okay.
No, it was a good answer on that point. I'd be interested, like, on other points. What like if people are like, well, I want to be really wealthy, or I want to, be the best of this or whatever. So that feeling of lack that sort of goes along with that is interesting. But let me switch gears on something I wanted to touch with you. We've been going a little bit now, but these frequencies, and I know I'm just starting out into it, but these frequencies, like there's these things that are kind of coming on the scene, and I think people have been playing with this stuff for a long time, but now there's more of a general thing in the public where you go on YouTube and there's a focus frequency and concentration. Or my wife kind of got me onto this by one of her friends sent her a weight loss frequency, and it's literally just like a frequency that she's playing into her ear. And I've actually, in this space that I'm in, sometimes I really need to focus and there's a lot of like noise, and it's not that I can't like work through that, but I have these tools that I use sometimes with the headphones, these binaural beats, right? So I'm saying I do this as well, but I wanted to get your opinion on that, like as a technique for uh for me, for gaining my focus. And like if you listen to Andrew Huberman, I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. He's promoting this, so he's like a mainstream Princeton science or Harvard scientist, neuroscientist. And he, provides a lot of information on people controlling their circadian rhythms and using different techniques, including this frequency here that I'll sample with you, came from, like, I guess he's kind of promoting that as a good frequency. So it's a binaural beat, and it just plays like a low tone and a high tone, and it's not like melodic. So let me just give a sample here to show you what I'm talking about, if that's okay.
Let me just for the listeners, people don't know binaural beats. So these were developed like in Monroe Institute, right, for like the psychic spies, right, the remote viewing stuff. So originally that's, but binaural beats actually what they do is that uh, there's two frequencies with very small differentiation between them, and the brain's frequencies are infrasound, right? They're subaudible, or to make that particular type of frequency and actually broadcast it, you need huge speaker arrays. We're talking like super sub bass, like, very, very, I mean, almost, infrasound outside the audible spectrum. So that basically, that crossing out, your brain will hear, like say it's a 40 hertz tone or 75 hertz tone or whatever. Your brain will hear that, which you can't physically hear, but your brain will create that tone because of those, it's called dichotic hearing, left and right ear. It will cancel out. So.
Yeah, and this is a 40 hertz. So let's just sample this. Okay, I only have one headphone in, but you have the headphones on. How did that come through correctly through the Zoom?
I don't know. I may be set on mono or stereo, but I mean, I heard it. I don't know if I got the binaural effect. I think it was, I may have a mono output, but
Okay.
yeah. So it's, I mean, um, so
So that one says
um,
it's for focus and concentration. And when I
mhm.
listen to that, none of the other ones I found do this. I'll take my headphones off and it's like, you can hear my brain has like adjusted something to, like you're saying, maybe fill in the gap. Something has gone on with that particular frequency, where when I take them off, there's still something going. I can hear in my mind, in my brain happening.
Yeah. So that's so really everything in the everything is a type of resonance, is a type of oscillatory energetic output, whatever it is, everything from the atomic structure to psychic force fields to neural anatomy, is everything is a type of frequency or resonance. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to check that out and see. I mean, as long, yes, it absolutely, it will certainly work. In terms of, it will, your brain is going to, it's creating an entrainment wave signal. So basically, entrainment, very, one of these kind of interesting laws of the universe, right? So you have two bodies. For example, I think the guy that discovered it was a Dutch guy in the 17th century. But basically, you put two clocks together. After a certain period of time, those clocks will start moving in sync, they'll phase lock, right? So there'll be some kind of locking. They're not necessarily hitting at the same time, like tick, 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 they'll phase lock in a type of synchrony. So this is a oscillatory process, right? And that's so yeah, so your brain is phase locking into that field, and then it creates the oscillation pattern. So then it's self-sustaining, right? So it's like you hit a gong or something, right? So that's, yeah. So I mean, stuff, it does work. I don't, I can't, I'm not really, qualified to speak on, how the effects of it. I mean, I do know, like, I visited actually the Monroe Institute a couple of times out there in Virginia. There's that one guy who was in I think it was the Men Who Stare at Goats, that he was the basic character off of him. So he's an interesting guy. Just think of that. I mean, he's been through some, but so basically, I mean, so it can be used for these states of, all kinds of states, can be generated potentially through this, through the neural entrainment. It depends on these are things though that they have. We start looking at types of gradients, right? So you look at 44, 40 hertz, 40.9998733 hertz, 40 point, 40 point, 75124. All these, when the level of the brain can have, yes, there's going to be a center sort of gradient, I mean, a basic field, but then there can be lots of different variations within that, even from very minor, adjustments of the frequency ratio. So, as long as, there's nothing that's not, if it works and it feels good and okay, and it doesn't, and the other thing though, is that if it's a tool that you can do, you start to be able to do yourself. You don't need necessarily to invoke the frequency, because there's other ways. I mean, I've been working on other ways to do similar things. I'm not that in that sort of mediated way. But yeah, I mean, for sure, it works, and it may be really effective. And like I said, I know it more. I like the my brother had these, like, he bought this like huge Monroe thing. So basically, it takes you for out of body experiences, right? So you basically, it creates, whatever. I did. I don't think I did that. I don't think I like went out of body, but it puts you in a very, different types of, non-ordinary consciousness. So, but yeah, this absolutely works.
Yeah,
So,
there's other ones. That one seems to be pretty effective, but
mhm.
I think I wanted to bring it up also because people are starting to use these more now, and like there could be someone making nefarious frequencies and posting them on YouTube, right? Like there's these ones I've noticed, like there's trickling stream in the background and like the nice, and it seems like okay, that would make sense why that would be designed that way, but almost left with this feeling of like I don't know how to explain it, like an empty, yet there's like something missing, or an anxious subset of feelings that come along with what seems like it would just be like, oh, you're down in the riverbank by the stream in a valley, this sounds great. But so I do think that some people should be careful, like just listening to frequencies for hours and hours and hours that you found on YouTube from some guy like without a professional studio who's just messing around with whatever. And so it should also be something that if you're feeling bad after listening to a frequency, I'll put that specific one in a chat, and maybe you can check it out, and maybe I'll send you privately some of the other ones I've been working with that seem pretty effective. But I mean, you've used Indian ragas and resonant tones like Ganesh mantras as tools for centering. How does music uh, like that help to heal versus like enslave?
Well, there's so many. I mean, music is as a tremendous potential, actually, um, because in a certain way, music is, it's kind of interdimensional. In a certain way, it's just sound, right? It's sound that somehow makes sense. So it's really odd, like how music even exists and what it does, which is so amazing, right? Because I mean, you look at a painting, now you can have all kinds of things about the painting, but it's there in front of you. You see the colors, you see the form, shapes, whatever. Music, so in a sense, it models structures of the society, models particular structures of the self, can invoke or evoke, allow, much deepen emotional experience, deepen your expand, and also be allow you to sort of, go into the space of where everything is all right. There is no, like, there's no concern anywhere. There's nothing you're worried about. You're completely in this nice space of safety or whatever. So yeah, and so it's all kind. I mean, this is a we probably should start with this, right? So I'd go on and on, but yeah, and basically, um, so back to your point though about the videos. See, here's the thing. So, um, yes, these will absolutely affect your brain, no question. Will they have an effect? Yes. It's not snake oil, right? This stuff has real effects, but as I mentioned, there's the gradient level, there's the ignorance level. I mean, people actually have studied this. Where is the? I mean, in fact, I'm definitely going to look into this because it's super interesting. It's stuff I've been sort of, coming at from a very different angle, more like kind of mathematical stuff, and just I'm starting doing some shows on this stuff. So so looking at it, and you find that these, like for example, the octaves, you find these particular ratios of numbers going through the unit monochord, and it's everything, every structure in the universe, everything. You find these type of relational ratios and this octave, which is, it's just, so these are really interesting. These are universal laws, right? These are there, and they are and there. And but again, how do you access this, and in which way do you access it? So that's one, but very, very important to trust that, like what you said, you got that feeling. But see, there are a lot of things where you have something that's called like piggybacking, right? So you have a carrier wave frequency. There's something piggybacked onto that. So that is the actual impact site. The surface is not the impact site. And the surface can be very beautiful, and it can be very enticing. It can be whatever. You have that carrier wave frequency. You've got that. That's what's really having the impact. And that impact, if the surface impact is enough, you won't even notice that's happening. So you have to be conscious and really just notice intuitively, how does this feel? I mean, just when how does this feel? Or if anything is off, then I would just like stop it immediately. Depending. Um, I, this is the thing that, again, this is where discernment is so important, because there's things like, you say, I recognize that, wow, I have like all of this whole layer of stress that's subconscious over my whole body. That kind of sucks. I don't like it, but is it a fact? Yeah, it's a fact. Okay, do I want it? No. Okay, it's gone now. But it's like that, the discernment, it's easy to just push that away, because to get to some of these, the sort of deeper layers, when you're connecting with that, it's sometimes things can be very vivid and clear. Sometimes they'll just be like an instant, and then it's gone, and you won't even retrieve it. It may come to you at some point, but it may not, so be aware of that. I think, and it's definitely an interesting topic. I mean, um, I found, for me, when I started, looking into this stuff, it was a while ago, like, the whole 440, that whole thing, which is just shows the power of frequency, right? I mean, that's really a fascinating thing. 432, is 432 the magic frequency? Um, you know, I've found other things that that I like, but then and I've seen some of these things, they pop up, YouTube, like, okay, 495 for this, where I would really like to know what, I mean, like I said, Monroe Institute, that stuff, that was research, but it was research for, um, again, more like, like sort of deep, delta, theta wave, and then types of, like subconscious out of body experience. But then that also, if you're going into that kind of super deep trance state, that, we have to be mindful of who is going to be pulling the strings once you're in that trance, or what feeds are there. And, because it's the deeper you go, the harder it is to keep your consciousness, right? I mean, it's easy to let it slip. It's kind of like there's all these shoals, there's these, clouds, or these layers you pass through. And as you go deeper, you can just go into some imaginary field, some kind of a memory or whatever. It would be totally vivid and real to you. But you won't even know you're doing. I mean, you can recognize it. You know what I'm saying? But as you go deeper, you have to really be more and more clear. That, anyways, that's a whole nother topic. But so basically, I think it's potentially very good, but it's an interesting phenomena. And so again, I had something. It was like a binaural thing. A number of years ago, and it seemed to be pretty good. But like I said, it does work, and if it seems to work for you, and you're not getting any negative effects, and I would just say that one good thing to just be able to recall a particular state, right? So when you're doing that, you concentrate. You can create some type of a cue, a physical cue, some way to anchor that, and so that you can bring it back. And as you become very familiar with it, okay, I'm in this state. It's familiar. You familiarize yourself. You're able to, not, imagination is all visualization. These are all wonderful tools, but they're also they also could be very, very dangerous. And that's that. I mean, imagination in the wrong pendulum swing can lead to almost like psychotic break, or lead you to sort of a type of imprisonment in not in your own life. So
Yeah, and I know it's pretty anecdotal for me to be like, "Oh, this frequency is working for me." I've noticed this, that it's just things that I'm reporting, but uh, at the same time, I think people um, could find use in that if they're having a problem focusing. Like you said, it should just sort of be a natural. I can bring in my focus. I can stay here. But in an environment that I'm in, sometimes there's quite a bit going on around me, and I'm literally found a tool that I really need to focus right now on this, and all this is happening, and this is trying to pull me away, and I found it helpful to be able to like lock in. Like I'm going into the lock in chamber for a little bit, and I have noticed actually that I can kind of get there. I'll find myself focused in work without even really realizing it, with chaos happening behind me. I have children in the house. I'm not trying to say like they're chaotic. They're just children, but they can feel like chaos if you're trying to read something or study something. So
yeah,
yeah,
no, and that's one of the, it's an important, thing to develop. I mean, yeah, but just as a caveat, with concentration to because well, I could do that pretty much whenever I want to. But one thing that I've have found, like sometimes, you're concentrating, you may not have an issue with it, but be able to still have some immediate, clear impressions from your body, from your spine, from the base of your spine. I mean, these are just direct, clear. You're getting the signal from your nervous system, and it's clear. It's a clear perception. Just have that sort of as a background to make sure that, if you're concentrating, you're not like hunched over, or you're tightening your shoulders. Or if you do, just notice it,
gritting
or
your
just every once in a
teeth.
while.
Yeah, all these things.
Yeah, yeah. And some of these things, like even say like, breath, there's a lot of, you do breath work. I mean, and stuff. Yeah, it could be important, like Wim Hof stuff. I got into that, but then I realized like that's a similar thing. Like, wait, it also, you're running that parasympathetic sympathetic nervous systems at kind of full blast. So that's,
Yeah,
and you can also get a rush or a feeling of liberation when you just overload your system, which
right.
is very different from, you know what I mean, peak experience. But
Exactly.
but these are good tools, and I'll definitely kind of look into that and check it out
Well,
and see
what
how
about
it
like
operates.
metal as like a masculine tool? Like we're kind of we got a different world now, and it's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen the video of like, it shows like Pantera, like men in the '90s, right? And there's like Pantera on stage, and then it's like men now, and it's, I don't know who the hell it is, but it's this goofy guy in like the car wash, and it's like the music obviously changed or something. And the point they're making is like men are being feminized, right? Um, which I would agree with. And what do you think about like a conscious metal band that is pretty heavy, but they're not Marilyn Manson lyrics? They're actually trying to expand consciousness, let's say, or get masculinity back. Is it only these lighter classical music that's good, or is there a place for a more aggressive?
Well, again, it does depend. That it basically, it's you want to have as much variety and flexibility and options, and be able to, if you need to do some adjustment or change or shift, I have to do this. Man, I maybe just do a total. You move. These are basically, and some I'm working on. I'm not going to get into like sort of a tuning, because in a sense, a mood is like a resonant state, but it's also a. I'm not trying to promote my new podcast, by the way, by saying that. I keep dropping that, but that's why I thought of it, in that. No, but I'm like, this stuff is very like easy ways to don't spend 10 years, do it in 2 months and change and stay that way. That's a great thing. You know what I mean? Don't waste time in life. You know what I mean? If you don't, try not to waste time. That gives you, and then, but you definitely, that's where, you start doing that. You want to have a purpose too. Then you connect with your purpose. You got all this uh, more energy, more, enjoyment. But crap, sorry, I got a little bit off tangentially. So we're talking about frequency attunement. Sorry, what was You had a
We were
question.
talking about the resonant state, your new podcast. Now we were talking
Oh yeah,
about
okay. That's my.
metal,
Oh,
and
metal.
you know,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
for me personally, I'll just say for me personally, there's some metal bands that I'm really into. It's what you would call doom metal, but I'm not like listening to it going, oh yeah, I'm so vibing with my bad feelings and it's making me feel, you know, like it's to me it does it's like this like expanding, there's all this atmospheric stuff they're doing. Yes, I understand there could be an intention behind that that's doing negative things, or those guys are in a negative place or something, but like again, going back to something more anecdotal, I find it quite powerful and like mind expanding, and I'm not like dooming out. It just happens to be the name of the type of the music that I like, right? But yeah, so but like when I was in the metal scene in Salt Lake, where I would go to these shows, like the symbolism and the unconscious projection of these things that these band members were deploying, that I realized quickly they don't really understand at all what they're dealing with, right? And it's just so intense, and like everybody's trying to one up each other on the symbolism and the Satanism, and a lot of them I found like don't even really understand the philosophy of Satanism. You know, like I'm not even sure if they've read the book, the Satanic Bible, all the way through. Not that I'm promoting that. I'm just saying like I think these guys are just wielding tools. They don't even really understand the power behind them. You know, so there's that too with metal, all over it, in all the various genres. You know, black metal is like specifically satanic. You know.
Yeah, I- so per se, like sometimes you do something, you want some high energy, you know what I mean? And so that's where type of music can be really good for that, potentially. And you know, it, I think that ultimately, it is really up to each individual to discover that and be able to understand things, but not also to, I mean, suspend any valencing anyway. Okay, this is good, this is bad. And part of it is just to, I mean, if it's something that's of interest to an individual, to say, oh, how's the music I listen to actually affecting me? You have to sort of go through a little bit of a process. It's not take super long, but you have to kind of go on a music fast, and then you kind of gradually add, some like very type of simple things, but you listen very consciously and just notice, your senses, right? Your ears, it's so cool, right? It's just like these like conch shells, and the sound travels down in, and then it hits these little hairs, and it vibrates these little hairs vibrate this drum in this fluid. So it's like your embryo, right? And then that gets converted into electrochemical signals. So it's pretty cool. Like, so just notice your ears, notice your body, see it. Um, but kind of gradually before you used to go into metal, and get very sort of just get a sense of what music actually is, and and if it's something like say like a raga or some type of very meditative like Arabic music, or I mean classical music also can that's very good. I mentioned that because like focus, right? If you want to have good concentration, very good mental activity, organization, mental organization, even to a certain degree, emotional organization, classical music is very good for that, right? Depends on the effect you want. And so, yeah, there are, as I mentioned with Muzak, right? We start, so this is a great sort of a closure cycle here, because I started talking about Muzak, which, and you mentioned propaganda and saying Muzak was developed to just operate on the body and operate on the physiology, really, the physiology, heart rate, breathing, things like that. And through the physiological modifications to affect performance, to affect attention, to, look at that dip of productivity, and do something to boost people that get through it, whatever it may be. So in this sense, if it's important, I mean, I think that this is something you have to find that in yourself. That's not, for me to say what it is, but there's a that the real clear centering of yourself, and then then you can see and try different types of music, and just kind of, and it's experiment, right? Life is an experiment. You know what I mean? And so don't be afraid. I mean, just it's it you to start to learn. It's sort of like it's not. you're not separating yourself from yourself. In fact, to me, it's you're trying to come closer and closer to the truth of yourself, your being, to be able to be completely free emotionally in your life, you know what I mean, and have be able to function social interactions and just but be no one else is you, right? It's you want to be purely yourself. You don't want to you don't want to be limited by something that happened to you or something you're holding on to or something, you don't just so, but in a sort of way, like, well, what is actually happening? What is objectively occur? Well, how can I start to learn how to sense that? So this means also developing, um, trying to just develop your senses, develop, you know, uh, be able to, change your focus, even say visual field focus, you know, narrow vision, wide vision, panoramic vision, just start to see these abilities perceptually you have, as they're coming. Kind of have to allow it or sort of intend it. It's like, because you can't really, I can say, well, I'm going to do this, and so that's where the affirmation thing is. But, and to just see, and so, I mean, there is, like, like certain, stuff, I mean, it depends on my mood. I don't listen to rock that much, but sometimes I feel like listening to it. It's great. It's what I want to hear at this time. Um, there are effects because there's kind of a narrowing of focus. It's kind of an intensity, especially with the rhythmic stuff, which you see in other types of music, like classical music has a much more complex, organized structure, right? So there's things like that. But yeah, so it's the thing is, you develop the I mean, you have to have it has to be important to you. Most people don't care. I am the way I am. It's fine. I mean, but sometimes just to see, not even as saying there's something wrong. Well, why am the way, or what? How is this actually? There's a big difference between the actual impact of something in the immediacy of its arising and your recollection of it and the way that it's sort of infused into your narrative. Does that make sense? There's a very, very big difference. And that's so that's I mean,
Well, for example, like in the series with Jan that I'm going to link in the resources of this episode that you did, it wasn't like you guys were battling on this point, but Jan seemed to kind of lean on the side of everything's bad now because of what we understand, right? And you seem to kind of try to keep resurrecting throughout the series. Well, no, but it's these. There's good aspects over here, and it's not that Jan didn't accept that in the series, but people can watch that. I recommend that series to people, and I still will because it is really expansive. And we only touched on some of the points here today, but like that is a resource that you've done that I really appreciate to help people. Even my son, who's 14, who's getting into in the kind of music that he's into, to have this buffer of knowledge that you've put out there, Hans, is super helpful. I mean, it's a huge public service what you went into there in that series with Jan. We can't reproduce it here today. We've gone in a lot of different avenues and veins, and I think you call that like holistic thinking, right? Holistic speaking. It's not so much just like here's the parallel or the serial way that we're going to go through this information, right? And we talked about that before we started, that this wasn't meant to be that. This conversation was meant to be a little bit what might feel like some people all over the place. But they can get that series and watch it and really kind of make up their own mind, first of all, if it's all good or if it's all bad, right? um, like you said about the complexity of classical music, it's the same way I was talking about the metal bands that I'm into. Like it's not just a 4/4 beat that's kind of like AI produced nowadays. Like there's this complexity and variation and change, and that's kind of what I'm liking about it, and it's also like a worldview. Like, where are you coming from? Are you optimizing for happiness and always feeling happy, right? Like if you're in like a pleasure principle, only wanting to optimize for feeling good, then I guess like that would sort of define what you're going to allow to listen to and what emotions you may process or allow music to affect you to process.
yeah, well, that's you may mention like your son, and by the way, yeah, hopefully I'm going to start actually reposting that series on my channel. So yeah, I basically did that as a public service. So I did not, did not retire. I mean, I basically did it for next to nothing. It was just, but it was just yeah, I get interested in something, I continue. But no, it is really important because the thing is that we can really, especially when we're younger, but even we can be held in place, especially by music related to types of, you know, they just, you can really limit yourself and you can also not, not really be here fully. Right. And and that can be very uncomfortable. Most people, I don't want to experience the entirety of myself as I am. You really have to be able to be so clean and clear, or clean, but I can feel anything. I mean, it's like there's, I want to expand and learn and grow, but there's nothing that I'm afraid of, and there's nothing that's going to bother me. And if there's something there that I don't like in myself, or there's some negative thing or some kind of trauma, well, I'm just going to that's going to just, maybe a long process, may not be pleasant, but okay, I don't want this. It's going to go because it's limiting me and it's unnecessary. But so with music, especially like hip hop, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I remember, I was involved a little bit in I played I was trying to find that album and they re-released it. So that's why they took they recut it. So I'm not doing the guitar on it, but there was a song with Chuck D, like Public Enemy, Black Superman. And that was kind of cool to do that. And I was some of this like older, like there's a rap like De La Soul, like conscious rap. And I remember having like almost these mystical experiences. I had like very rudimentary studio, but had some guy come over and rap, and just it was like it was some kind of it was amazing. It was really it was just like, wow, this, like, like amazing, like altered state, but like in a way like, oh, this is like real. This it just, amazing, like mind blowing, completely. But rap, there's so much rap, man. It's just absolute darkness. And the thing is that
Right.
it's best not to, it's certain things, it's best not, don't, especially if you're doing it unconsciously. I kind of like it, but this maybe it's creating a subconscious grounding, right? And then especially where you start to be attracted towards negative situations or just whatever, what I mean? It can unfold certain things in your life that you don't want. And it can reinforce types of personality traits that are best, you know, moved past at a certain point. So it can really have a powerful effect. It's good not, it's almost better to start out just being a little bit disciplined and use it as like, so music has a very powerful thing that, or it can be just be nothing, but it still has some effect. But just try, well, how can I really consciously start to understand, but really get a maximum benefit and take it as something special, not as just, wallpaper, right? Because remember in the past, people had to play music live, not till the early 20th century, we had recorded music. Um, so, but it is, I've seen this. To my own son. I mean, he was really into this kind of rap, and he went through a very bad patch in his life too. And a couple times he put this music. I said, don't listen to this music. Oh, I like it. No, what? I mean, you may even like it, but don't listen to it because it's not going to have a good effect on you. And I'm not saying it's a direct causal thing. Hope he doesn't listen to this. He'll be pissed probably. But I see guys. He's doing great now. He's doing great now. But that I saw that, and he really it can definitely, and especially if there's some other vector coming in, some other type of influencing factor, some kind of transition or something challenging, it can push you into that and you won't even know. And we're talking about your inner being, not your outer being, your inner self. So you want, and that, um, and you don't really know what that is, right? You want to try to find out what that is. You want to be able to be available for that, truth of your own being, so to speak. But it's a process, man. So we do it, but certain things like say, well, listen to this, try this, this, because some of that stuff they're using, I talk about carrier wave frequencies, there's bass frequencies, there's stuff that's actually, damn it. I mean, like reducing intelligence, at least temporarily, actually reducing intelligence, and just fire, very, almost, it's like like electric cloud, black electric cloud. You don't, not being racist, I'm sorry. But I'm just kidding. But literally, like, you don't really. I mean, it's best not to do it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I really enjoy, getting a case of Lafroig and drinking a whole case of Lafroig. Well, I, I can't. Yeah, I basically don't drink, but if that I enjoy that. I used to. I didn't would drink a whole case, but yeah, it's like I mean, I know that there's other side effects that I don't want, so I don't do it. You know what I mean? It's just as simple as that. But you know, that's what, especially for younger people, parents, especially at that teenage age, this music will have a very can have a profound impact on their development. And this goes back to Plato, and the understanding of this is not new. I mean, Plato, ancient China, but he's it talked about different styles of music and what they did to the development of the youth and how they influence the entire society and certain types of music. One of the things is they you know not necessarily harmful, but it's like produce a lack of ability to emotionally regulate, right? Lack of self-control, um uh lack of being able to become calm, sort of a more of a frenzied approach, or just
And
just
the
you're not.
generation gap thing you've talked about too, where you're creating this divide between you and the next generation with some of the radical shifts in music.
Yeah, yeah, and so but some of these things can actually affect your endocrinal system. Okay, and so these things, and when you get, and that's one of the big issues I think with a lot of some things are actually they're in your there's adrenal system, endocrinal system, and that and you may experience it as something, but you have to go to that biological basis, right? There may be an emotion or even something like that, even could be experienced as stress or something or other, but it may actually be this type of imbalance that you cannot. Yes, you can reach it through your mind, but not through your discursive lexical speech mind, right? But that takes if you can do that, most likely you're not going to have that problem, right? But anyways, so yeah, it's just like, but one thing is say, well, music is it literally has it is a it's like almost like magical. Like this is the whole universe is made of frequencies, and this creates like it holds culture. It permeates the body. It can change the states of the mind and body. It can hold and pass things on along generations. It can share very deep emotional experiences. It can create inform, right, and create a rich ground for life itself. And so you know um and again, one last thing I'll say is that most of people's lives, and most of the time, they're completely dominated by their unconscious mind. Everything is unconscious. The conscious mind has very little input into what they're actually doing. They don't really have conscious awareness. They don't have governance of themselves. They are in unconscious mind. I mean, most of the things are, I mean, it's amazing. Like, it's great to be able to do things. You don't have to think about them. You know what I mean? Like stuff you don't want to do, you can program your unconscious and you have to do some super boring admin thing. You can just do it and and you probably do it better. And so, it's a tool like anything else, but people just living absolutely unconsciously in their reactions. They don't even know why they're reacting in this way. And then then you create yourself, which is very fragile because it doesn't have any ground. You don't have any ground to yourself. You have nothing. And then if people become very defensive, they become very afraid, they become very aggressive, they become very hedonistic, they become very, you know, totally self-centered and like, diabolical, or they become depressive or whatever. This is so, in a certain way, we're extremely resilient on the other way. Like you mentioned, that the frequency, small things can have very large effects. And if there's things you can access that can actually over time can have nice, positive, profound effects, why not do that? And then the recognition that music, like, wow, everything is in the whole universe is these vibrating arrays. Everything, everything, whether it's light, sound, everything is this thing, and it's real, right? It's not imaginary, it's reality. So that's pretty interesting, right? And then the fact as well, you're also composed of these, atoms, and so we're all actually, we're all, we're not, even if you're totally isolated, you're not isolated because you're part of the whole field. But it's the question of how do you access that, and then anyways, but it's just super interesting stuff, and I think there's a lot more to discover sort of in these ways, and why not have great tools if you can just, I mean, what I mean? Like, okay, I want this mood, or I'm having this issue, boom, I have a headache, gone. Okay. If it works, these things work. I mean, as long as, I think you don't ever want to be dependent on something external for something. You do it because you want to, but you're not, if you're taking a medication, when you finish that medication, you don't want to keep taking it because you want to get high. I mean, I guess that's your prerogative. You have freedom of will. You can do anything you want within the extent, but then do you even have your will? Do you even know where you're coming from? How many things are you just doing? You just bound. A lot of people, they're just a ball on a pinball machine, just reaction, this, that. No, they're so divorced from their actual selves, and the actual lived experience is so, there's so many layers blocking off. That's, it's all held in your body, all the stuff, you don't want to experience that. It's like, it's terrifying. Well, but then you just, I mean, if you're alive, why waste your time? I think, but some things don't take a lot of effort too. I mean, things can be very easy. Some things are difficult, but, anyways, so music is a really interesting thing. It's a great tool. It's a great thing just to use you can intersect with the different feelings of different, people of different times. Um, there's so much richness just to expand, and just, you can use it as a, just like, make your own music structure, the type of work you have to do. You can tailor make music to generate or facilitate certain states of mind that you want, that are ideal for that particular thing you're engaged in.
A lot of what you were saying kind of goes perfectly in line with the interview I just did with Matt Presti, and on Walter Russell's work. We talked about quite a bit there, and um, so with the frequencies and the light and people thinking about that. And I think one of the kind of themes in this episode, among many, were bringing consciousness to this situation. And that's what I back to my son, we just had a conversation, not me telling him what to do or what to listen to, but just about I've been listening to a lot of your work recently, and just bringing up the topics, that the music can have these effects. The frequency, I brought it on to show how a simple sound can have these effects. And, I'm not going to tell him what to listen to or not. I do remember, like, when listening to Jan, like, when you guys' stuff, there was a point where he even, like, publicly declared he was getting rid of all his music. Right? And his son, same thing. Like, I'm not even going to let him listen to it. I was more just like bringing up the conversation, like, hey, a lot of these guys, like, I started out with Elvis. Let's talk about Elvis. Like, what happened to that guy? What? And then later into these current, rockers, and a lot of these guys, and looking at the actual results of their life and where they're ending up. And, like you were saying, like, my son, he's very influenced by the music, right? So it's like the powerful masculine men, those are the guys doing it, right? It's what it appears as.
Listen to Wagner. Okay? Tell him to listen to Wagner.
Wagner, okay.
Ring Cycle. He's a classical composer, like super opera. So
Okay.
yeah, no, just have him put it on a little bit, and that's super
Yeah,
masculine.
and the audience too. Like,
You know,
same points to everyone, not just my son. That's just me contextualizing my personal opinion about it. But, like, this is good advice for anyone listening to this as well.
well, the thing is that, to a certain, only thing I'll just say it in a general critique of, say, popular music is that, it's it essentially is a derivative of, sort of folk music that people would sing, whatever at home, or just, their things. But it can create a very small box that you think is your world, right? And that's the thing. And if you look at classical music, we're more elite. Well, this is a much more expansive sense. I mean, actuality, right? So, um, And just to I mean, actual what are the results? Can this have an impact? And you can do the opposite and say, okay, I'm going to listen to like black metal every day for 2 months for 2 hours, and you can see. I mean, if you want to do that, you can do it. And I would actually like someone to do that and just log it if they could just. You have to have some. You need to have some. See, even if you get into very, very intense levels of experience, always have some clarity, but or just a way to sort of log things, and it's always good to sort of you're not your issues or your problems. You can step outside them, and even just as okay, what is causing this? Where what are these factors? Or and notice subtle things. Okay, with breathing, heart rate, pulse, and develop more sensitivity towards actual your nervous system, like let that start to connect with actual processes as much as possible and actual sensations, accurate, right? Accurate, trying to get accurate perception is important. But yeah, so it's all, it's all good. I mean, again, everyone has their own choice what they want to do in their life. But the fact is that the popular music scene has been, really used as a tool to shape people and also to create very um, limited, self-centered, um, cowardly people. Maybe that's harsh, but maybe I mean I think someone that's still wearing a mask is kind of cowardly because you what what I don't want to step inside. I don't want to know what they're feeling. That, but it must suck. Must not really be fun if you're afraid of what this invisible thing that may do something to you, and you're gonna breathe your own carbon monoxide and just you lower your cognitive, you damage your brain actually. You know, so that's I mean, it's always that balance of not thinking that like I'm like you just touch me, I'm going to fall apart. I'm just made out of glass, right? But little things can have big impacts, right? And big things may actually have very little. I mentioned that's a dark concert. I mean, that could have had a huge impact on me, but I did it. Actually, I have the recording. I mean, even though it wasn't easy. I played. I did it, and there I was, and I did it, and people loved it, and so I literally had the mindset like if I can't, I mean, technically I don't even have a finger right now. It's just bloody friggin' massive, muscle and gristle or whatever. But you know, I just if I can do it, I'll do it. If I can't do it, then I can't do it. Fine. But I'll proceed with my will in the way that I would like to be and do my best and just dial it in. But also with that caveat that, as you mentioned, I'm gonna just work out. I like working out. I'm just keep working out, like, all the time, and that becomes another type of a type of uh dissociating patterning, right? Potentially that you're actually trying to hide from something. You know what I mean? Or like a lot of times people they say like depression. Well, I mean, first of all, what is that really? What is it really? What does it mean? What does it mean right now? What are you experiencing right now? What are you thinking about? What are you doing? How are you talking to yourself? What are you looking at? What are you, okay, start there. Right. But a lot of times these are things that like, maybe there's some technically like the pain signal or discomfort it's a course corrector, right? So you feel maybe you need to change your life. Maybe you need to change what you're doing. Maybe you're dissatisfied. Maybe you need to, settle, resolve some issue, and what you're experiencing on the surface, you making that symptom the condition you have to solve. The condition doesn't even have to exist if you start by at this very moment, what am I doing? Do something different. Start with the action. Just act, do something, engage, you know, and then see. And then a lot of things just they go away. And unless you're making excuses. So, and depends again what you want out of life. But I mean, it's like it's not you don't life. I mean, it doesn't necessarily you never know how long it's going to last, and then at least in a non-self-centered way, like just being a unique being in this particular time, and this is it. I mean, for you, right? It's not dress rehearsal. It's this is it. It's not like I mean, and maybe, maybe you just run a bakery and that's, I make the best bread in the world. Okay. But I mean, at least confront that directly. Don't be afraid and look in, you know, and then, and to move forward. There's nothing to be afraid of, but also, but don't, if you don't take that step, you can just, your life will just go by and then you're thinking, well, I'm about to die and shit, I should have done something different. Can't, you can't do it. I mean, you can, there you go. On to the next lifetime as a beetle, or maybe as like a rodent, maybe as a dead possum, man. Who knows? No, so yeah. But instead of saying there's a problem, well, take that impact or that thing and say, what's some gain that can come from this? Or what levels, just and but all like I said, always as much as possible to not be don't make the data conform to your preset belief if it's not accurate.
Right. Like you said earlier, maybe it's when times get hard that suddenly that like a younger person may just kind of default into that programming that was laid in with whatever popular artists or music they were listening to. And now that kind of becomes how I'm handling this situation. And if it's sort of like everything sucks and it's all fucked up and it's just horrible, that was, we were having this conversation the other day that, yeah, everything's fine now, but it's when times get hard that this stuff is going to start to kind of come out and could seem like how you are dealing with it, but it could also just be an embedded program that you're kind of just dealing with this pressure with how you've heard it dealt with by others. And it's catching that and realizing it, I think that takes time to do, but conversation like this may help someone, to recognize that going on in themselves.
Yeah, well, that's I mean, the you should be able to be the same, whether be the same means that you're not. I mean, even if you're really, you don't lose yourself, like tragedy, loss, overwhelming success, whatever it may be. I mean, and you're exactly right, because it is when you see in the past, even for say elites that go to the privates, the real expensive schools. I mean, they don't use iPads. They have their inputs are are regulated in an intelligent way. So if you go back, to you have models, right? Because this is where you're almost gonna default, right? Your mind gets your conscious mind can get overwhelmed, and it's very easy. For example, people that like just freak out. This happened, they melt down. You see this in TV shows a lot, or because they're entraining this in people. Oh, it's good if I'm in a situation, I'll just melt down, I'll just freak out. Where it used to be like, no, you keep your center. You don't, because once that train starts, you're not going to get off that train until whatever result, like anger, rage. I mean, okay, you feel angry, but don't, you don't necessarily need to act on that anger. And how many times you get, if you don't have that regulation, that little gap, and especially when the world itself becomes insecure or this and that, and then you're defaulting to these, um, in a sense, I'd have to say essentially almost demonic strategies. You know, it's like especially rap. I mean, some of these are demonic strategies that if you're a person of that particular ilk, so maybe that's you want to go into that darkness, but stay out of the darkness, man. And that's the thing is that sorry, what I was trying to say is the point is that if you really carefully regulate that, so instead of drawing on, in a sense, it's a resource, right? And you may subconsciously, you don't really know that this is what you're drawing on, right? I mean, sometimes, but you're not necessarily going to say I'm reverting to this. I mean, of course, that's the whole point of it, right? You're not going to know per se, but I mean, it's like if you have very heroic or, really strong guidance from types of media inputs or types of, literature or music or just values or whatever, then you default to that. you're going to get through in a much, much better way in a very difficult situation. You know what I mean? And if you can't handle difficulties, and that's something I to a certain degree with, I guess, younger generation, is at least I've heard, is that, people, they tend to melt down, right? You got a difficulty. Ah! I mean, what is that? That's useless. It's stupid. It's just, it's an insult to me and yourself, just because you just dial it in, man. Who cares? Nobody cares. I don't care. So stop it. And if you're going to do it, I'm not going to engage with you. I'm not going to engage in any way in your, and that even, like, say someone that is very like angry or whatever, that's a frequency, right? They're emitting that energy, literally, not abstractly. They're emitting a type of a field that, and they want, they want to draw you into that field. And once you get into that, then becomes it's self-reinforcing. It creates its own power system. And you probably, just arguments, fights, right? It's that, the person gets into that. You see people, the confrontation, it happens all the time, right? And especially if it's like, you have cultures where, if someone insults you, we're going to have a duel. We'll kill each other, and that used to actually, which is, in a certain way, at least it's pretty intense, man. I mean, we don't live that way anymore, but like dueling culture,
You fuck around and find out real quick, huh?
Well, no, I mean, it used to be, right. People would challenge. I mean,
Yeah. Well, in the old Western days, right? I guess there was these duels and disagreement. Let's take it outside and see who wins.
No, I mean, among elite, politicians, I mean, people, famous writers have been killed, in duels. It was just a thing, like somebody, yeah, but it's a very formal thing, It's like, I mean, look at the samurais, they're like, I mean, the samurai culture is very, very, so there's a lot of variable structures and ways to handle experience, right? Now, so you want to, like, Harry Curry. I mean, these guys are hardcore, man. I mean, so we don't have that kind of immediacy in most of our lives, life or death, unless you're like I don't know, you work, fire department or something, but, it's, but no, dueling, yeah, like Alexander Hamilton, like he got in a, duel. I mean, the people would duel, and they would just, and it's a formal, they have a date formally set. And it's not, I mean, Wild West is more like, gunfight, but this is like a formal dueling culture, that existed. And, I'm kind of glad that's gone. But I mean, but what I'm saying is that instead of people having meltdowns, they'd have a duel. Like, so that means you're going to be much more considered in how you approach that. So, you know what I'm trying to say is, and so this is really, and there's a lot of music that does promote this kind of just freak out, or anything goes, or, or just too much, too much self-focus in the wrong way. Oh God, I did. She broke up with me. I mean, feel the emotion, but don't, it's like, because okay. Anyways, I'll leave it there, but
No,
yeah,
yeah, it's kind of like resistance to change in a way too. Yeah, like it needs to stay the same. And if it's changing, like it's kind of like almost an autistic sort of setting that I need to be this way. And if it gets too much not that way, oh my God, and it's like, no, it's the consistency is the change, really. And kind of getting used to that idea, I think, could help get through a lot of these problems of things that come up, like you were talking about earlier, a major struggle and people kind of resisting it. It's like, what I've realized is you got to lean into it, and accept things that come that are changing things even in a shocking way. And, the more you can lean into that, it kind of turns things, it kind of is a magical power to turn problems into not problems, It just depends kind of how you look at that. But yeah, there was a lot there. There's a lot said. I don't necessarily know how to put a capstone on it, but what else do you want to share in this interview? What would you like to put in here, or what would you think that people should be asking, or that younger people might need to be more aware of, or what, something that I didn't ask that you're like, oh, Tyler interrupted me. I was on a good point there. And anything else from
no, I'm
your
just
side, Hans?
totally. I mean, this, no, the reason I think that, at our particular juncture in world history, and the thing is, you see that when we started the show with Jan, a lot of things came to pass in a certain way that I didn't think would happen, but yet the signs were there, right? And so what, even when we started, that seemed like really like radical and really out there, like now it's right there in your face. I mean, look at even the, you can see the whole music videos, how much they've changed into absolute, these are straight up, and these are like, I mean, very deep type of, cult programming rituals, and just really dark, dark, dark things. Cause basically, it's like people, it's almost like, you're living, in a sense, your subconscious is like an ocean, and your conscious mind is like a boat in that ocean. And so that ocean can destroy you, and the ocean can completely control you. So someone who has a meltdown, or whatever, they're run by their unconscious or mind. And so I would, subconscious are things that are there, you're just not noticing. So there's a distinction, right? Conscious, at least I have my own way of sort of formulating, trying to get lexical clarity, so to speak. But subconscious. I mean, there's, anything in your subconscious, you can draw it to your conscious awareness, right? I mean, are you aware of your left little toe right now? You're aware of your right little toe. You're aware of the sole of your foot. Are you aware of your perineum? But I just said that. But now that will come into consciousness, so that it was subconscious. It's there, right? Um, but anyways, but the unconscious is very vast, and you have to learn how to be master, not the servant and the slave. Okay, I mean, and it's very easy to become a slave of your unconscious and be tormented, destroyed, or just live a really unpleasant life, or just have your potential because you've set this conditioning, or you've accepted the social conditioning or the programming into yourself, and you're letting that operate your unconscious, and you can't get through the subconscious barrier, which would be things that you're experiencing at this moment. Maybe like, your baseline emotional, what is your baseline emotional state day in, day out, right? So anyways, at this juncture in world history, we're really looking at the sort of an end game of one particular platform, which is, culminating in this sort of way of making people so miserable that they want to, stick their, be a, basically this goes back, there's a Penfield wrote the book, Brain in a Vat, right? So your brain in a vat, you're just a brain in a vat, and you have no control. You have no autonomy, and everything's being externally fed to you. That's not a good place to be, right? So don't be a brain in a vat. And I think it's important, at least, depending on what, how you're, connected with what is happening in the world, because there's lots and lots of stuff happening. That's like, look at Europe, man. I mean, it's just, Europe is just imploding. I mean, just I saw the story the other day about the girl who, defended her sister from this guy stalking her, and some illegal immigrant guy. And then she was 14, her sister was 12, and she got put, they arrested her and put her in prison. Like, and that's just fine. No one's even saying, I mean, it's not fine. I mean, no one's doing anything about it. Like, how do you reach that point of total learned helplessness? How can you allow that to happen? You have to have some honor. I think you have to have a position of some honor of what you think is important, and try to live by that. I mean, maybe you can't do it every day, but just say, is this important? Okay, I'm going to be a person of honor and honesty. I'm going to be, I will, I'll be diligent. I'll be disciplined. I'll be, grateful, whatever, and connect with that. And, but I think it's really at this phase is that it's really, you can, I don't know necessarily what, with all these different force vectors, depending on where you're, I mean, maybe someone listening is like some, I don't know, Elon Musk or something is listening. He's like, oh, dude, okay, here's $100 million. Go ahead. But I mean, what, start, make your own life the best it can be. This is going to start, and then you can find your way to connect, and this will start to create a transformation, because otherwise, the whole system is really, at a stage, of this. I mean, there is a goal, of, total planetary control, permanent planetary control, which is very, in some ways very close, in some ways not. But it's definitely ongoing, and there's no slowing down. So, don't let the media inputs also create a state of fear, or whatever, or this or that. And if you get angry, then use it, but don't just, I'm an angry person, don't, like James Dean or something. Yeah. Just, I mean, anyways, so that's, I think that, we're witnessing so many profound transformations, but I think there's a window that is opening up to sort of, nudge things in a different direction. And so, um, and so I guess this is kind of part of that. I think that's at least, of importance. And so, I'm not really afraid for the future. I mean, I think that, ultimately, I think that, things will work out. And if they don't, then they don't. But it's not going to help me to be afraid about it right now. It's not going to change. I'll be more effective if I'm fearless and believe in the possibilities of change and transformation, and really generating a new type of world reality. And I think we're overdue. I think it's time to do that. I think this particular configuration has kind of run its course. And I think the technology, man, there's certain things like AI, if you start getting brain atrophy, maybe, you don't want to base your society on AI. I don't want someone else to think for me. I don't want to go into some other person's imaginary friggin' brain in a vat disembodied world. I don't want to be bathed in toxic frequencies. I don't want to eat food that has, mRNA crap in it. I mean, I don't want people to be suffering, but also don't want to see very aggressive idiots. Like, for example, I don't know if you encounter this, I'm not sure where you're at, but like drivers, you see people just doing these maniacal, extremely dangerous driving maneuvers. I mean, now it depends on the day, but sometimes I see a lot of this. People just, crazy stuff. A lot of road rage. You see these people just immediately just reverting to violence and, stuff like that. So, in a certain way, at least my estimation, to a little bit put not get too much caught up in some of these things, because it's going to get much, much worse. There's going to be a lot, I think, of, we'll really see like some real breakdowns. People just completely, they're not able, they cannot deal with difficulty, adversity, or they just, it just, and they'll react in all kinds. Well, we see it right now, but I'm just saying. So I think it's a very important time to take the time, like the stuff I was talking about. I could flesh it out more, but I think, you know, every everything in your life you want to change, you can change, and that's there, right? If you're willing to do it, and things are not so difficult. And even what can seem a great problem, if there's nothing you can do about it, and maybe you have to live with it, but then make the best life you can with that being there, and don't let that draw you away, and start taking back the potentiality and the power that is inherent within you, you know, and I think then we'll find a very new uh, future unfolding.
There's still this symbol on the keyboard. It's a question mark. It's hard to see there, but there's still question marks on the keyboard, as Richard Grove's taking it back to him always says. And so yeah, it's still a choice, and I think that gap is closing. I think that it can go the right way for freedom and truth and prosperity and love. But it is a choice that we're making. Those people in the UK that are allowing that to happen, that's a choice. And the people that continue to get up and pull those levers for that control grid that's doing that to people, that's still a choice for them. They're not imprisoned into that mode. And so that's why I think it's so important to practice that choice and stand up for what's right, like you said, because we still can. And it's not guaranteed. There's nothing here that says that's a guaranteed thing for sure. It's going to happen. I love the positivity, but, there's nothing in the universe that says we have to be here in this free way and we do have free will, but it can be drastically reduced. And yeah, I think you're right. We're at that event horizon point, and, it's up to people to wake up to do the right thing, and want to do that. It's still something that we have to do. There's no one coming to save us in that way, in my opinion. Hans, anything else that you want to leave? Where could people locate you or follow up with you? Muted. It's okay. Only one mistake the whole time. That was great.
Yeah, I was trying to see if I had my links. I think it's my on my external drive. So yeah, please. I'm starting this up here. It's like I said, I just had my yesterday. My PayPal was like it's gone. So there you go. Whatever reason, the back room, the back room. I don't know who that is, but anyways, but yeah. So I've got this new podcast, Resonant State, and I'm gonna be uploading. I had this other show, so and this is on Spotify, and I think I'm on 3 or 4 different audio platforms. It's on YouTube still, I believe, and it's on also Bitchute and Rumble. Bitchute, Rumble. I think there's one other one. But Odysee, yeah, that's under XX under Hans Utter Investigates. So I've not changed the channel names yet, but yeah, please check out the show. And I'm trying to like get into some like more detailed stuff and like workshop stuff and just things with like music and frequency and also like learning to use, pitches like you sing yourself and how to create sort of different, parameters, right, in yourself. And, and so it's, and even, in situations and even how to impact external, you know, environments like people and stuff like that to be able to shift and be able to, and it's kind of exciting because, when you see this, wow, this actually works, right? And it's not because I believe it works, because I can witness it. And yeah, so please check out the Resonant State podcast. And like, I'll send you an email with the links for that. And, other than that, I've got a gigantic, what I've been spending most of my time. We got this huge festival we're putting on. So it's a major, major undertaking, but it's in Columbus, Ohio, September 18th and 19th. It's Northeast India Heritage Festival. And so, Northeast India is something that I mean, it's like a totally different, region. We've got, 8 states. There are 8 states in Northeast India. We got people coming from out of state. We've got, various Vance might show up, probably not, but we invited him. So, but it's a big festival. So if anybody wants to,
Awesome.
come out there, I will also, send you the flyer, and
Yeah,
it's
I have
really
some
cheap.
friends in that area. Brandon Martin, who I interviewed, lives around there somewhere.
And it's really, my wife, I was like, why are you making this so cheap, man? I was like, because we're with this scale of event, right? And it's just we're doing it, so it's not.
That's
There's
awesome.
definitely lots of financial outlay in there, but yeah, please check it out. But it should be we've got chefs flying in from different parts of the country. There's gonna be all kinds of food. It's like handicrafts, live music, and it's like I said, if you're not, it's a totally different region of the world. It's not, even though it's in India, obviously it's a totally different, culture and everything. So yeah, so please, check that out. I just sent you the flyer there for that. And that's September 19th and 20th.
Okay, perfect.
And, yeah, so that, and then that's about it, I guess. So.
Me trying to grab that kicked you off the screen, but I don't want to lose it if I close this. So sorry, everyone, for a second here. Let me grab that. What was the name of the festival? Just drop it again for folks. They want to write it down.
Northeast India Heritage Festival.
Perfect.
And yeah, we've got all these like, which I'm even doing like art display. I mean, we have got, like, I don't know how many, 50 photographs, and we're also putting that up. So we got this, unique, super, as a whole, like pretty amazing, photography display from all over too. So it's pretty cool, event. I'll be glad when it's over, to be honest, but it's good. It's good.
Dude,
That's why I got
a huge
married, right? So-
undertaking. Oh my God. I can't believe that sounds like a massive undertaking.
Well, I mean, everything, from printing, I set up a nonprofit, to setting up sponsorship platforms, to like trying to like web building. I mean, on and on and on. And it's like the other day, she's like, "Oh, once I set up the nonprofit website and the donation platform, she's like, okay, you're done. You don't have to do any more." that wasn't true. So I even just this morning we were trying to put together like one of these, giant boards for the photography display. But it's one of those things I'll say real quick is like this. It's kind of amazing. This is actually coming together. It's you know. My wife and I are both like she's a vocalist. We're kind of more like artistic types, not really like the. But it went just from an idea to now we have people coming in from overseas. We've got it is becoming quite a big event, and it's the first. Well, there's one in Singapore, but it's the first one in North America, and just bringing together all these different groups and cultures and everything from
Yeah.
music to food, etc. So
Sorry, I popped into my mind. Make sure and have your OPSEC in mind and what you will do in situations that come up. Maybe a little bit thought out. Not that you're going to be able to think out every situation, but just going back to the festival that I mentioned earlier, some mitigation techniques or some folks that are responsible kind of to do so, right? So that they're the ones who know, okay, I kind of need to do something here. Versus the vibe of like, well, nobody's really responsible. And then when something goes on, nobody's really taking responsibility to fix it. And in that moment, you kind of have to, or it could go off the rails. So that's my only advice with there. Just like have some plans in mind, have some rope in case you got to tie a guy up to a tree or something, like it's out of line or something.
I don't foresee that happening. I mean, hopefully I'm not. I mean, I'm trying to, I like I said, I've done a lot of we have a book also where I got monographed like 60 pages, so I had to edit that and I don't know. So but yeah, well, no, that's
Nice.
one of the things is that, like practice, right? You say practice makes perfect. Well, it's very good, like say like a martial artist or whatever, or someone does something like you practice it, but then if it comes, that means you can do it in the moment, right? When it occurs. And so that's, it's important to, kind of develop some of these type of strategies or even like a sit rep, right? Situational, like, clear, you know, maybe it's not hard for most people, but I think a lot of times if you see, are you really, not that you have to be hyper focused on it, but are you aware of your environment? Are you noticing some of these small, what I mean? You can notice them subconsciously, but that kind of practice, especially, or dealing with things. Okay, this is a situation, how to navigate this, and how to have some strategic thinking embedded, for certain situations or whatever. Hopefully, not entailing tying people to trees. You know, that, but it's always good. And the thing is, like I said, it could be like you create like optimization scenarios for everything you're doing and just keep perfecting them. It's kind of, it's fun. It's,
Right. And like we were
it
saying
works.
earlier, though, like not seeing it as like, oh my God, if something happens, we're going to be screwed. But like if something happens, we're going to handle that shit. You know what I mean? And then that way you kind of see yourself in that moment, like, I'm doing it right now. I'm handling that shit. Versus like, oh, we don't know. We manifested this. I shouldn't have said that on Tyler's show. Oh my God. It's like, it's not that. It's you'll see something coming and then you'll be like, oh, here we go. I was ready for this. I know people kind of woo woo, like, knock on my particle board desk. I shouldn't have said anything, but my mind goes to security, my mind goes to threats, and that's kind of what I do. So I think about all those things. It's not like a negative thinking. It's more just like preparing for autonomy, being prepared for anything that comes.
Well, they're particular. I mean, um, you have some kind of an impact, right? Coming from a certain vector. Like, I mean, okay, sure. We had something like somebody, from some other state and they have their own organization for this one particular, it's called Manipur state. So there's all Sikkim. We have all the states there. So they were actually trying to backdoor and take over the whole event, so stuff, I
Exactly.
mean, so, that's, to have, maneuvers, right? Ways. And the best thing is always to redirect the force to what you want it, to the place you want it to be, right? You know what I mean? So to try to, like, judo or something, try to redirect things back or remove them. The less, the less in any, you know what I mean? Like the less in the impact. like take care of the threat, but make sure that it's like the impact of the threat potentially is mitigated. You know, I don't know what kind of threats, you're dealing with necessarily, but like, I mean, and that's so the mitigate it or just prevent it, yeah, or be able to, you know, have enough strategy just to, you know, clearly and succinctly done. You know what I mean? Not, and not, and then again, be able to take the, before diving into some action, get a clear awareness and acknowledgement of the situation without your own personal emotional
Yeah, keeping your
coloring.
cool. If you can keep your cool in that situation, that's the way to go. You know, even if you have to be a little bit more aggressive or whatever, losing your cool just takes away that. It almost takes away the authority or whatever needs to be imposed at that time as like a measure is like someone who's doing it with a cool head, right? That's effective. Or someone losing it and freaking out. It's like then I think our minds just generally, well, that kind of equates to that's incorrect. Even if he's right, that's a little bit inappropriate or whatever. But yeah, no, anyway, I don't know why I went all there exactly, but I hope you're the best with that and go get it done. And then, like I said before we started, like a lot of the guests I have on here, I kind of envision having them back at some point. So get through your stuff. We'll get into 2026 here and see what this world brings our way. And then I'm sure there'll be more to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I just we just went into particular directions, so I kind of talking about stuff. But I think it is important. I think that and it's one thing partially like I could go into like this and that, like all these things that are going on, which that's also important. But it's also to find a baseline that the world could be falling apart, but you are fine. You know what I mean? It's like that's the thing, and that to really have a sense of freedom, so you're not governed by, even if it's a very bad external impact, you're going to keep going, and it's not going to, you still stay on course, so to speak, right? You're still going to,
Yeah,
and then it's enjoy, right? Why not experiment? You got this, it's like really weird, right? Like we have this consciousness. What is consciousness? What is this body? Like how does this even work?
your
Like we
camera
don't
has a
really know.
consciousness. It's like it wants to show me your books apparently, and not you so
Oh,
much.
did it move by itself?
It's all good.
Okay. Yeah.
I
All
wasn't
right.
gonna. I
Well,
was gonna
hey,
pull you on and say, hey, Tons, your lighting is a little off. We gotta change it. No, but you're totally fine.
no,
Yeah,
my
no, I
light,
agree.
I have some issues with lighting.
Yeah,
So,
that's my
but yes,
definition of freedom. Is it's not necessarily dependent on what's happening around you. It's in the mind. So you free the mind, and the rest will follow. So I know you've seen the Prisoner series and whatnot, where. And the funny thing is, at the end of the Prisoner, what is it that's in control? Who is number one? Which is like a double meaning in that. Like, because I won't give it away, but it's an AI, folks, that's in control in the end on the Prisoner. There's another double meaning to that I'm not giving away, so it might seem like I'm spoiling the end of the show. But I bring it up all the time. The Prisoner series. I think you're familiar with it,
oh,
right?
oh no, in fact, I've been wanting to do something on that because it's a really there's so much in that, man. My
Oh
lighting
yeah,
is off.
it's so
Oh, my
deep.
light, but yeah, there's so much in that, and that information, and this is like we are the information, right? The village is like your smart city or whatever, or the village is like, you know, but anyways, there's so much in that show, and
Totally.
Patrick McGowan, never really talked about, like he didn't, as far as maybe you found stuff, but he didn't never really said much about that show. You know what I mean? He didn't really interview. He was kind of quiet and stoic, but he did that actor. He did, and they had a lot of information if you look at when it was made, and how much was put into that show. With the whole, I mean, everything.
Even the tricycle or the unicycle is the symbol of this, you know, kind of what's the steampunky and ridiculousness of our technology, in this contraption. And in the meaning of, there's the symbol of this unicycle in this show. What the hell does this mean? And like you said, he didn't really explain. I don't think there's so many levels that it's like you gotta definitely maybe go through it a few times the series to catch some of the meaning. And it's kind of occulted, which is kind of the point. Like, so is the character's journey. It's something that he's going through, and even the other folks in the show cannot even relate at all to what he's going through. And so he himself is a mysterious figure in the series to the others.
Yeah, yeah, no. It's really a classic. It's got actually the score is really good. It's pretty cool. Score, the music. It's all with some pretty interesting. I just like the music is
Yeah.
actually really good.
So Sean
It's definitely
McCann, there's your homework, and then you and Hans, and I'll be a special guest on your show. We'll come in and we'll break down the Prisoner series.
okay. Well, great. Yeah. Well, I guess. Well, I just saw we went over time, but it was just a lot of seemed to me to be interesting. So I'm not falling asleep yet. I haven't had any coffee, so I think it was interesting.
That's
So,
fine. It's
but
all good.
yeah, so enjoyed it, man. Thanks for just. I kind of like the, my wife's like, well, what are you going to talk about? I was like, well, I don't know. So I will
Like
see what
this
happens.
random
So
dude just hit me up and didn't even tell me.
yeah, no, it was enjoyable, and there's like I was more on the general plane, but there's a lot of specificities that um, it's it's very possible that you know your consciousness is really a filter, right? So what is being filtered in, what is there, what is not, how does that work, and how this can actually create. You can be in a reality that is set up, and it's going to be the preconscious level, and it's going to shape everything you see. It's going to shape it can, if it's it can shape your entire life. And but this is, I mean, this is a function of the human organism, right? We can't take every single we can do I think was it 7 to 9 bits per second maximum separate processes we can follow, and however many, seven and then like
I think I'm
15
at like a
bits of it
4. I'm not quite up
per
that high.
per sec. No, I mean, not, I don't know how many people are at that level. I think but I remember always hearing like, oh, you can only focus on one thing at a time. Actually, you can focus on many things at a time, potentially. With anyways, leave it there. But yeah, so it's
There's other work that you've done that I would point people to. I mean, yeah, we were a little all over the place, but you've laid it out there. Go throw the Hans and Jan show is what I used to call it when I would watch you guys. It's the Hans and Jan show. But no, sorry. Go look up Hans's work elsewhere. He's laid down lots of information to bring maybe some of these topics today that seemed a little. He didn't thread that back in there. There's other work and other podcasts that people are interested in checking Hans's work out. Highly recommend it. Very mind expanding and not just conspiracy jerk off circle to the latest fear porn thing. It's deep and contextualized and helps you understand a lot about your own reality and your own mind and how to navigate some of this stuff. And so I really appreciate your work, Hans, in that way. It's definitely helped me. So that's why I wanted to have you on, because you're a great dude and really appreciate all the stuff that you've done.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler. And yeah, we'll definitely do it again. And yeah, I'll shoot you an email. I'll give you those links. And would you mind once you get it posted? Can I post it on my channel also?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll follow up with
Okay.
you too if I need any links or info that we dropped here as I re-listen.
Okay, great. And yeah, if anybody wants to be my assistant, let me know. It's too much work. No, it's all good. Just, it's, instead of, again, that framing, right? Instead of saying, my God, this is insane. There's so much pressure. We have so much money on the line. Like, for example, festival, like we could lose like tons of money on this. The tickets are like $25. It's like, dude, it's like my wife, like, why do you just pay people to come? If you can just make that, but that's okay. But how do you frame it? This is like 50 different things. They're all important. They're all totally different. How do I find a way to manage it the best possible way where I'm in the best possible state, right? You know what I mean? To create the most effectiveness, the least amount of effort with the highest result, with what kind of then takeaway, right? So you know, if you learn from what you've done, and if it works well, then keep using it, augment it, stuff like that. And so I think most things in life, you do that, and just that's where your thought is important. You direct your mind. Okay, I'm really in a bad state, you know, and everything is, you know, I lost my job and everything. Just not me, but I'm saying, like, you know,
Right.
example, person A. Well, okay, so what do you want? Do you want to just or do you want a different state? Okay, well then here's where you're starting. That means you're in such a bad place, you can only get better. So just do it. You know, just and then just take action. And that's the thing, the immediacy of not being caught in a loop, not being caught in a dream. Wake up from the dream. Wake up to the you know, because you can always make a choice in this very moment, right? So there you go. Enjoy it, because you know that's all you got. You know, I guess one has, you know, I mean, and it's important for me. Like, I think my life's important because it's my life. It's not someone else's life. So um, you know, at least that let me live my life the way I want to. The Jimi Hendrix line. I'm gonna die. I'm the one who has to die when it's time for me to die. So let me live my life the way I want to. With the caveat that, you know, you don't want to be like, I think that it's a time of more regulation, discipline, and sort of being calm, as opposed to, like, you know, going off on you know, insane, you know, self-discovery portals in Peru with a bunch of dark shamans and, you know, whatever. I mean, you know, I'm saying that, like, there's time for everything. Maybe once things settle, we can do more freak out stuff. But I mean, do what you want to, but make sure that it's connected to your values. And it's, if you have you extend that out for more than just your own little bubble, and have some importance for others and what you can contribute, that also takes a lot of pressure off yourself, right? And because you have a higher purpose, I have a higher destiny than just, you know, so you can overlook things on the way that may be unpleasant and this and that, and always try to use it to your advantage. And any problem, difficulty, someone says, oh, you have these problems. I said, I have solutions that I'm waiting to engage or discover. You know what I mean? So anyways, I'll leave it at that. And yeah, check out my podcast, The Resonant State. And I guess that's it. So, all
All right. Thanks, Hans.
right, thank you, Tyler.
Merkabra.